Hey everybody, this is Sala, and you guys are welcome to this brand new course on Visual C Sharp or WinForms C Sharp. This course is for absolute beginners, and you don't need to have any prior knowledge of WinForms. WinForms are also called Windows Forms. We will be using C Sharp to program WinForms. That means the only prerequisite for this course is C Sharp. So you must know the language C Sharp. You must have good understanding of C Sharp before taking this course. This course is a single video course, but the entire course video is divided into chapters. Use the timeline of this video or the timestamps provided in the description in order to go forth and back and find different topics. Using WinForms, you can develop a desktop application very fast. WinForms is a rapid development desktop development environment. It's a .NET library and has been around for 20 years. So let's move on to the first chapter of this course where you will get yourself introduced with WinForms. But before that, don't forget to like and subscribe. Smart Code, put a comment and do let me know about your opinions. So let's have a quick introduction to Windows Forms. Windows Forms, are also called WinForms, is a user interface framework provided by the Microsoft for building desktop applications. They were first introduced with .NET Framework 1.0 back in 2002, almost 2 decades ago. Using Windows Form, we can create GUI-based applications, like we can work with buttons, text boxes, labels, menus, and many other controls. GUI-based applications are always event-driven. That simply means user interacts with the application, events are triggered, and code is executed. Just remember this point. Development in WinForms is event-driven. The code is only executed when the event is triggered or fired. Let's have an example of this event-driven development model. We have a form that contains only a button control. The application is running, but nothing will happen until I trigger the click event. As I click on the button, the code behind will execute and generate a message box. Let's click on the button, and here you see the message box. So as a user, I raise the click event just by clicking on the button, and the code behind was executed. So that was an example of event-driven development model, and you will be working with it throughout this course. The application structure of WinForm is very simple. We have a form, which is a main window in our application. Then we have controls. Controls are tools like buttons, labels, panels, group boxes, text boxes, etc. Controls are put on the form. So form is a main control. Form going to host several controls. Once we have controls on the form, we can assign them events like click, mouse move, mouse enter, text change, etc. And then we have code behind. C# logic and code which executes when the event is raised. A designer file in the application is for auto-generated code. As we place a control on the form, several lines of code is generated, and that code is placed in the designer file. Usually, we don't need to touch the designer file, but there are some cases where we need to visit the designer file and do the changes. In the coming lectures, when we will start working with the WinForms, I will show you the designer file and we will study its content. So that was a quick and a brief introduction to WinForms. Let's now move on. In the next chapter, you will learn to create WinForms application. In order to create WinForms application, you must have Visual Studio installed on your computer. Start Visual Studio and select Create a new project. In the next window, you have the opportunity to select an application template. And here we will search for the Windows form. You can scroll down and look for the template. You can even search the template in the search bar, or you can use the filter button to filter out some of the templates. For example, I don't want the template from all the platforms. I will simply select the Windows like this, or from the all project types, I will select the desktop. Now you can see most of the templates are filtered out, and right there we see Windows Forms applications. The application that we need is Windows Forms app. It's the application for .NET Core. Do not select the other one, Windows Form app for .NET Framework. We will select and work with the core application. So select Windows Forms app and click the next button. Now you can name your project. For example, Windows Forms Demo. That is your save location. You can save your application anywhere on your system, And this is the name of the solution. Solution is just like a container or a folder on your hard disk. So we can name our solution like Windows for WinForms demo application. And now click next. Suggested .NET Framework or the installed .NET Framework is 8 on my computer. You will always try to select or work with the newest .NET version. So .NET 8 I am using here. Now click on Create. It will take some time, and when the application is loaded, you will see form control. Here we go. A brand new WinForms application. The name of the application is WinForms Demo, and this is our form control that you see here. This application is fully functional. Now click on this green arrow in order to execute or run this application. And so you see our application or our form 1 in the running mode. So now we know how to create WinForms application. In the next lecture, we will talk about this environment. We will talk about the windows we need to have available all the time. For example, Solution Explorer, Toolbox window, and the Properties windows. While working with Windows Forms, we need to keep open some windows all the time. Let's examine the windows we will work with and keep them open all the time. The first window we need to keep open is Solution Explorer, and in this window we can simply see our project and the project files. For example, our project name is WinForms Demo. This is our form control. Here is a designer, and this is program.cs file, which is the entry point of the application. Using this window, you can even open the save location of your project. For example, you will simply right click on your project name, and then you will select the option Open Folder in File Explorer. It will open the save location of your project on your hard drive. If you accidentally close any window, not only the Solution Explorer, any window, then you can get it back from the View menu, such as at the top you see the option Solution Explorer. So let me just close the Solution Explorer window, and now we will get it back from the View menu, and here we have Solution Explorer. Let's click on it, and you can see the window is back. The second important window is the Toolbox window. In this window, we have all our controls such as buttons, checkboxes, group boxes, etc. And once again, if you want to open this window, you will go inside the View menu, and here you will find the option Toolbox. Another window we need to have opened all the time is the Properties window. Using this window, we set the properties of our controls. Let's say when I select the form 1, I simply click on the form 1, and you can see the properties we can adjust for the form control. When we put more controls on the form, this properties window will simply maintain a list of all the controls. So here we have a drop down menu. Right now we only have a single control, which is the form 1, and that's why you don't see the list of controls here. Properties windows can be opened in several different ways. The first option is, as usual, the View menu. Click the View menu, and down there you have the Properties window. You can also open the Properties window doing a right click on the form and then select Properties. Right, so these are the three main windows we need to keep open all the time while working with the Windows Forms. The last window is the error list window, where the errors are placed. So whenever there is an error in our program, we will consult with this error list window. All the windows have a common pin and unpinned feature. You see right next to the close option, we have a pin option, right? You see the pin option. So we can pin and unpin any window we like. Right now, the Solution Explorer, Toolbox, and Properties, all these three windows are pinned, and I can unpin any window just by rotating this pin sign. So click on it, and you can see the Solution Explorer window is unpinned. It is simply hidden to the left panel. We can reopen it just by clicking the name. Now you can see the window appears again. And as I click outside of the window, it will hide itself again. It's open but hidden. So we can pin and unpin in the application. So these four windows are important windows, and we need them most of the time while working with the WinForms. Let's now move on, and it's now time to study the form control, the main controls. In our next chapter, we will study and try to understand the form control. Let's now study the form control. the most important control in a WinForm application. Whenever we create a new WinForms project, it comes with a form, which is usually called Form 1. So Form 1 is generated automatically as the starting point. This Form 1 you see here, and this is the tab of the Form 1. If you accidentally close this tab or close the form, then you can get it back just by making a double click on this form1.cs file, or you can simply right click on the name and select the first option, open. And so you will get your form designer back. You can think of this form 1 as an empty canvas upon which you design your application just by dragging different controls. The form control has two different sides. This is the first side, which is called designer. As you can see the text in the tab design, right? So we are in the designer mode. The other side of the form is the code side, and in order to open the code window or the code tab, we simply right click on the form and select the view code option. Now you can see we have two different tabs, the designer tab. Here we design our form, and here we have code window where we write our C# logic and code. So when we work with the Windows form, we constantly switch between the designer and the code. The code file is a basic class file with a namespace, and inside that we have a form class. This form1 class is an instance of system Windows forms.for class, which provides all the basic functionality of a window, such as a title bar, minimize, maximize, and a close button. So this form1, the form1 is actually an instance of the form class. And inside the form1 class, we have form constructor, the form1 constructor. This constructor method is called when we execute the application, and this method further call an important method which is called initialize component. This method is a very important method, and it translates the visual components into code. For example, a button control is a visual component. Now on the designer, let's say I drag a button from the toolbox window and put it on the form. So as I put this button on the form, it is inherited from the button class. It has position on the form, it has a size, it has text and other properties, right? So all this information is automatically taken care by the application. We don't need to worry about it. Now, all the information I just named regarding this button, for example, the size of the button or the position of the button, is actually gathered in this method. And here we are simply calling the method initialize component. This is simply a method call. Now the question is, where is the definition of this method? The answer is the definition of this method is actually coded inside the designer file. You remember from the introduction, I told you the designer file is the most sensitive file. We shouldn't be there and make changes, but we can visit the file and study its content. So let's click on the designer file, and here you will find the definition of initialize component method. You see a tag here, Windows Form Designer Generated Code. Just expand this tag, and here you will find the definition of the component method. And here is the auto-generated code for the button. So you can see as we drag the button on the form, some of the properties are automatically taken care by our program, such as this is the location of the button on the form, this is the size of the button, the name, the tab index, and the text property. So every control you put on the form has several properties which is automatically taken care by this application or the program. So just like I said earlier, this initialize component method translates visual components into code. And here you see an example of that. So let's close the designer file. We don't need to add or delete anything manually in this file. So this is a code structure of WinForms application, and we don't need to make any change in this structure. This structure will always be intact, and we write our code inside this form1 class. And now back to the designer. Let me just remove this button control. You don't need it anymore. Now, the form control has many properties. As you can see in the property windows, there are so many properties. We will study some of the properties we set on the form. The first property is the text property. The text property sets the title that appears in the form's title bar. For example, the title is Form 1 and we can change this title using the text property. Let's say Bank Application. You can see the title of the form is changed from Form 1 to Bank Application. Another important property is the Start Position property. Start Position property controls where the form appears on the screen when the application is launched. And for that, we have several options. The most common option is Center Screen. So let's select this option, Center Screen. And now when the application launches, the form appears exactly in the middle of the screen. So let's run this application and check the output. Now we see the form in the running mode and the start position is exactly in the center of the screen. Another important property is the name property. The name of the control is always programmatic. So scroll the top and here we'll find the name property. The name of the form is form 1. As we can see here, the name of the form is form 1. If you want, so you can change the name of your form from form 1 to something else. But I recommend not to do so if you're only working with the one form per application. But if you have multiple forms, then you can simply name your form differently. So my friends, that was all about the form control. We studied the form control, the code file, and the designer file. In the next chapter, we will study the button control, and right after that, we will learn to code events. The first control we are going to study from this toolbox window is the button control. Button control is one of the most fundamental and frequently used controls in WinForms. Button is the primary way for a user to trigger an action in the application. Now, in order to add button to the application, from this toolbox window, we have two different options. The first option is drag and drop. Just drag the button from the toolbox and drop it on the form. Now you see we have a button control on our form. Another way is just double click on the button control in the toolbox window and it will automatically be placed on the form. So let's double click on the button and you can see another button is added to our form. Now we have two controls on the form. Form still is a control and in the property window, if we open the drop down, you will see we have a list of 3 controls in our application. Form 1, button 1 and button 2. And using the list, we can select a control to change its properties. For example, I can select the button 1 here and here you see the properties for button 1. I can select the button 2 and here you see the properties for button 2. We can also click the button here in order to change its properties. So now we know how to add buttons to the application. Let's move on. It's now time for the properties. Button control has several key properties and we are going to learn them one by one. The first and the most important property is the name property. Buttons are used in the code. That's why they must have programmatic name. Otherwise, our code readability will become poor. Development in WinForms uses a naming technique for the controls. The technique is very simple. Every control will have a prefix. Prefix represents the type of the control and then we write the function of the control. So a control's name consists of two things, a prefix and function. Let's have an example to get the better understanding of it. Now, for example, this button 1 is for save and button 2 is for cancel. So the name should be the prefix. The prefix for the button can be BTN. BTN represents the type of the control, BTN. And after that, the function of the button. The function of the button is save. So BTN save is a good name. So this is how we name our controls in WinForms applications. Now press enter. The same way we name our second button, BTN cancel. So we will start with the prefix. We are working with the button, so prefix should be button and the function is cancel. Now in the list, you can see the names of our buttons. They are changed, BTN save and BTN cancel. So that was the name property and now we know how to name our controls. Let's move on. Another property, a very important property is the text property. Text property simply updates the text on the GUI. So the text of the button 1 is button 1 as you can see here, but this button is for saving. So we can change the text like this, save. And the second button is for cancel. So we can change the text here like cancel. This text property is also used in the code. Using the code, we can change the text property of any button at runtime. Another useful property of the button is enabled. We find it here. As you can see, enabled is true. We can disable our button by setting the value false. Now the cancel button is disabled. It cannot be clicked when the application is launched. So let's run the program and check the output. So you see our save button is active. It can be clicked, whereas the cancel button is deactivated. This button is disabled, right? It cannot be clicked. These properties can also be set or manipulated using the code. Now, for example, we drag another button to the form. This is our button number 3. And let's just change the name of the button. BTN show help. The text of the button we are going to change using the code. We will also make it disabled. So in the code, inside the form constructor, this is a constructor, and this is called when the application starts. So this is a perfect place to put any code that needs to run when the application starts, such as initializing data or setting up the initial states of the controls. So we are going to set the initial state of our button control. So let's write the name of the button, which is BTN show help. Now you can see just by using the prefix, we can list out all the buttons on our form. So select the BTN show help. And now we are interested to change the text property. So using the dot operator, we will call the text property. And from here, from the code, we can change the text show help. And now once again, we will call the button show help. Enabled should be false. So you can see we are setting the text and the enable property is using the code. Let's now run the program and check the output. You will see the text show help and the button should be deactivated. Now you can see here, right? The text of the button has changed, show help, and the button is deactivated. So that was the button control, and now we know how to add it and how to name it. Let's now move on. Button is the primary way to trigger an event, and in the next chapter, we will learn to code event. Let's now learn to code with the events. In the introduction of this video, we have already said Windows Forms is an event-driven model. Code is only executed when the event is triggered or raised. An event is just a kind of signal that shows something has happened. For example, a click signal, key press signal, double click signal, mouse enter signal, load signal, etc. So when the signal is sent, the code is executed. In Windows Form, we have a lot of events which we can assign to our controls. For example, a click event can be assigned to a button. Text change event works well with the text boxes, and the load event is for the form. Throughout this course, we will learn several different events, but the click event is the main event which is mostly used to execute the code. So let's now see what do we do in order to attach an event to a control. We will work with the click event as for now in this chapter, but the procedure for attaching an event to the control is always the same. You can follow the same procedure in order to attach a different type of event to the control. We start by dragging a button on the form. So here is our button. The name of the button is button 1. The first thing, the important thing is the name of the button. The name is programmatic. Before we attach the event to the button, we must change its name. So BTN, let's say the function of the button is play. And now the text should be play. On the form, we have a single button, but this button is not functional. Nothing will happen when we make a click on it. So let's run the program and check the output. Now click on the button, you see nothing happens. And you know the reason. There is no event attached to the button. In order to assign an event to the control, for example, this button control, we have two different options or two different methods. The first method, which is also recommended, is to use the property window. In the property window, you will first make sure your selection. I'm going to assign an event to the button. So you can say, I will first select the button, and now I will switch to this lightning bolt icon. This is where we find a list of all the events. You can say so many events we can use and assign to this button control. For example, here is a click event. If I scroll down, here we have drag and drop, drag leave, drag over. And here we have anchor event. We have keys events, as you can see here, key down, key press, key up, etc. Right? So the list is very long. Now moving back to the click event. To assign this click event, we will simply double click next to the name of the event. So here is a case, right? So here we are gonna double click. As we double click here, this click event is assigned to the button and you will be diverted to the code window. So let's just have a double click here and now you can see the result. This is your event. The name of the event is btn play underscore click. btn play is the name of the control and click is the name of the event. And the event is simply a method with two parameters. Here we have the first parameter, which is sender object. Sender object captures the control that raises the event, and the event argument contains extra information about the control. So these are the default parameters and we don't need to think about them at this stage. So now our button has become fully functional. It will respond when we click on it. And whenever we click on the button, this event is raised or triggered and everything, the code we have inside these two parameters will be executed. Let's put some code here to execute. On our form, we drag another button, right? So the name of the button is button 1 and we will only change the enable property. In the property window, we will search for the enable property and we'll make this button disabled when the program starts. And now using this play button, we are going to enable the button 1. In our code, when the play button is clicked, we will simply call the enable property on the button 1 and we'll switch it back to the Boolean true. So let's now run the program and check the output. Here you see button 1 is disabled and now the play button will respond. Click on it and you can see the button 1 is enabled now. As we click on the play button, this event is raised and the code is executed. So you see things are happening and become interesting. Let's move on. Now I will drag another button. Let's say this button is for cancel. So we'll change the name of the button. Let's say btn cancel. And now we will assign a click event to this button. We will switch back to the event list. And this is our click event. And this time I will not double click here. I will instead assign a custom name to my event. You can also do that. For example, I can write button cancel operation underscore click. Now press enter. So you see the event is created, but this time we gave a custom name to our event. You can compare the names in these two events, right? So you can also give the events a customized name. So that was the first and recommended method to attach an event to the control. But there is another method which is very quick method. So let me drag another button on the form like this. Switch to the properties. The name of the button is btn hello, and this button will simply show a message box so we can change the text to hello. Now the quick method. Every control here in WinForms has a default event. For example, the default event for the form is load. The default event for the text box is text change. And the same way, the default event for a button is click. So whenever we double click on a control, the program will automatically attach the default event to that control. Instead of picking a default event from the event list, we can simply double click on the control. We can simply double click on this button. So let's double click on this button and the program will automatically create an event for it. You can see here, the button btn hello has now click event. It's a quick way to attach an event, but that event can only be the default event. If I want to attach another type of event to this button other than the default one, then I must visit the event list, and from the list I will pick a different type of event. So my friends, this is how we work with the events in WinForm. This is how we attach an event to a control. Do some practice by your own, drag some buttons and assign them click event. In the next chapter, I will teach you how to delete unnecessary events. It happens quite often that we accidentally create unwanted events. So we must delete them. we cannot simply go inside the code file and just remove this event method. If I do so, our program will complain and give us an error. So in the next chapter, we will learn to remove unwanted or unnecessary events. Sometimes we create unwanted or unnecessary events in our code by mistake, and such events should be removed so that our code file remains clean. So to remove an unwanted event is a two-stage process. In the first stage, we remove the event method. Event method is in our code file. This is the event method, and event method. So we remove the unwanted event method from our code file, and then we remove the event handler from the designer file. So here we have two-stage process. Remove the event method and then remove the event handler. So let's have an example on it. This is our hello button click event and the button we have here, right? This button has this event method. Now I'm going to remove this event. Let's just say this event is unwanted. I don't want that event in my code. So I just remove it. That was a step number one. I just removed the event method. But the event handler of this method is still in the designer file. Let's see how the program will react if we do not complete the stage number two. In the error list window, you can see there is an error in my program, and this error is actually coming from the designer file. So there is an event handler in the designer file which is unrecognizable. And if I show you the designer now, you will see the designer is actually gone. You see the error instead of the designer, like the name btn hello underscore click does not exist in the current context. And this hyperlink actually tells you what to do, which line you need to remove from the designer file. If I click on this link, I will be diverted exactly to the place where the event handler is, and I will then remove the handler. So let's click on the link, and now this is the event handler we need to remove from the designer file. So just remove the event handler. Now close the designer file, and designer is not back yet. So close the designer as well. And now right click or double click form1.cs to get your designer back. So this is how we remove unwanted events from our code. Just remember, you will always do that in two steps. In the first step, you will remove the event method. In the second step, you will remove the event handler from the designer file. Sometimes we accidentally create an event without any naming, and to keep such events in a code is not a good practice because of the code readability. All the events must have a proper name in the code. Now, for example, let's say I drag a button, right? This is our button number 2, and without changing the name, I simply double click on the button. It will simply create an event. As you can see, now the name of the event is button to click. The event is created, and in the code, we actually don't know the purpose of this event because the name is not clear. This name tells its purpose, button cancel operation. This one is also a good name, btn play, but this one is not good. Now, after the event is created, I decide to change the name of the control. So I will select the control, go inside the property window, and here I will say, let's say btn open. The name of the control is now changed to btn open, but the event will still be button to underscore click. That simply means when the event is created, it's created. You cannot simply change its name just by changing the name of your control. Now, in order to fix it, you have two different options. The first option, as usual, delete the event, just like we did earlier. Delete the event and create it again. Another option is change the name here and then update the handler in the designer file. For example, I change the name here first, btn open, like this. Now we will go inside the designer file and we will search for btn open. Here is a btn open and here is the event handler. So we must change the name of the handler, the same name, btn open. Now our code will work perfectly fine. Close the designer file. We can check the handler, sorry, the event. Let's say this button will simply display a message box. We will study the MessageBox class later on. Hello. Let's now run the program and check the output. There is no error in our code. Let's now click on the button and here we see the message box, right? Our program or our application is working perfectly fine. So my friends, in this chapter, we learn to remove unnecessary or unwanted events from our code file. In the next chapter, we will study the form load event, a very important event which is used to initialize variables and set the initial properties of the controls. The form load event is one of the most important events in WinForms application, and we use it to perform initial setup of the application. For example, in the load event, we can initialize data, we can set initial values or default values, and we can set up the GUI. Load event fires itself automatically when the application starts, right after when the form's controls are created, but before the form is displayed on the screen, this event is fired. So this is the perfect place to perform initial setup tasks. The load event is a default forms event. That simply means if you double click somewhere on the form, the event will be created. Or you can simply choose the event from the event list. As the event is default, so we can simply double click on the form to attach that event. So let's double click on the form and now you can see load event is created. Form1 is the name of the form and load is the name of the event. So let's now do a test. When the event is raised, I will simply wanna display a message box like this. Welcome to my application. This message box is displayed as we launch this application because we don't need to raise or trigger the load event. Load event is triggered automatically. So let's run the program and check the output. And so you see the message box that simply proves that the event is raised. Now click on the OK and then you will see the form in the background. So that was simply a test. I just want to show you the event is triggered or raised automatically by the program. Now in the load event, we usually do the initial settings. For example, on our designer, we have a play button, which is the main button, and then we have three more buttons: play again, new round, and close. The play button has the click event, as you can see, the click event method, and these three buttons are just for the demo. Now, when the application starts, I just want to disable or deactivate all these demo buttons. These buttons will be activated again when the user starts playing the game. So it's about the initial setup, and for that, the best place is the load event. In the load event, we will simply set enable to false for all the demo buttons. All the buttons will be disabled when the application starts, and when the user click on the play button, we are gonna enable our demo button. So 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 let's now run the program and check the output. Here's the output. As you can see, all the buttons are disabled when the application starts. Now click on the play button gonna enable all the demo buttons, right? So you can simply program the initial setup in the load event. You can initialize your variables. You can set up your variables, all the other controls with default values. But you have to remember only one thing here, one point here. This load event is only called once when the application starts. So that was a load event, very useful event. You can simply use it in your application. In the next chapter, we need to learn the use of the toString method in order to cover some more controls. Let's now learn the use of the toString method. Most of the controls have the text property. Text property represents the text of the control, and text is a string. So we know that from the C#, the text and the strings are the same. So the text property here is a string, and that simply means whenever we send the data from the code to the form, that data must be in string form. If the data has another type like Boolean, integer, floating point numbers, then we must convert the type of the data to string type before we send it here to the form. And to convert the any type to the string type, we use or call the toString method. Now, for example, this is our play button. Let's just name it to something else, calculate. Right, the text here is calculate. And the name of the button is, as usual, btn play, and we have an event attached to that button, right? And here we have three different buttons to display the calculation. So let's just change the text to them and put 0 to all of them. And they have different names. The first one is BTN play again. The second one is BTN new round, and the third one is BTN close, right? So we can keep these names. Now, when the calculate button is clicked, I will simply show some calculations here. For example, 2 plus 2, 3 plus 3, and 4 plus 4. So let's see how do we do that. This is the event for the calculation. The name of the calculate button is BTN play, and the first button is BTN play again, and we are interested to the text property, right? The text property represents the text that is shown here, right? And we know that the text is a string. If I, let's say, assign a string value here, the program won't complain because we are working with the same data type. But let's say instead of the string, I just want to assign number here. So as I wrote a number, program complains. And what does it say? It says there is a type conflict. Program cannot by itself convert the type int to a string. This is the type int, and we are trying to assign it to a control that accepts only the string. That simply means we need to type convert this integer value into its string representation, and for that we always use toString method. And now you can see our program accepts the value. So let's now run the program and just check the output of this development. Now click the calculate button and you can see the text property is updated. So toString will always be called on the data when the data type is not a string and you want the data to be published on the form. In the first message box, we will simply print the result of, let's say, 2 plus 2. And to the second button, I think the name of the second button is new round.text. And here we are going to print the result of 3 plus 3. We must call the toString method. And the third button is close text property. And here we will publish 4 plus 4. Don't forget to call the toString method. So this is how we use the toString method in WinForms, and we will continue to use it in our coming lectures or chapters. So let's now run the program and check the output. Now click the calculate button, and here you see the calculations result, right? Now in the next chapter, we will learn another interesting control, very useful control, which is called label control. Label control is a simple control but very useful. It is used to display information on the form. Label control can label other controls and can also be used to display a result on the form dynamically. So let's learn the use of the label control. From the toolbox, we need to find the label. Here is the label control. Just drag the label and drop it on the form. Here is our label. Its default name is label1. And like other controls, label also have some key properties. The first property, as usual, the name property. We can change the name to our labels, especially when we need them in our code. Now, for example, name can be LBL. LBL is the prefix, and now the label functionality. For example, user information, right? This label is for displaying this user information. And now I will use this label to tell more about this display information button. For example, click the button to get the information about the user. And now we can put it right under the display information button. So this is the first use of the label. Display the information and guide the user about the program. Now, instead of displaying the information and tell the user what to do, we can also use the label to show the result and display the information dynamically. For example, when the user clicks on the button display information, we will display a user here in 3 different labels. Let's drag a label here. We can also copy and paste to create multiple copies like this and like this. Now we have 3 different labels. The first label will show the name, the second one will show the profession, and the third one is for the age. We need to assign them proper names so that we could use them in the code. The label 1 is for the name. So the name of the label, a proper name should be like LBL name. The second label is for the profession. So the name should be LEL profession. And the third one is for the age. The name should be LBI age. And I am not going to remove the text. I will use the form load events to update the text property. Now our button's name is BTN display. Let's double click on the button to create the event. Here we have the click event for the button, and here we have the form load event. In the form load event, we will update the text property. LBL name or text name, LBL profession, text, and the last one is LBL age. So when the form loads, we simply updates the text in our label. So let's run the program and check the development now. And so you see the output. Text in our labels is now updated. Let's now program the display information button. So when the user clicks on the display button, we will assign the name to the name, profession to the profession, and age to the age. So we can simply copy this piece of code, paste it here, and now the name. We can put a name directly here, like this, or we can, let's say we have our data in variables, right? So we can create a variable, string, name, string, profession, and int age, like this. And now we can concatenate our variables with a string here, plus name, plus profession, and plus age, right? So data from the variables to the labels. So let's now run the program and check the output. Now click the display information and you will see the information on the form, right? Name is Sala, profession is teacher, and age is 40. Now you must have realized this control, the labels control, is very useful to display the information and the result. The label control has a lot of properties. As you can see that some of them are very interesting and we change or update them quite often. The first property, interesting property, is the auto size property. Auto size property controls the resizing behavior. As you can see that enables automatic resizing based on the font size. When the auto size is set to true, the program will automatically resize the label based on the font size. If you want to resize your label by yourself, you can simply turn it off like this, and now you can see you have the opportunity to resize your label. Let's change the auto size false to all of them. As you can see, the labels are actually transparent, so we can also use the border style property or the back color property to make them visible. For example, here is the border style, so we can just use fixed single. Now you can see the label has become visible there. And the border style, where is the border style? Here's the border style, fixed single, and border style, fixed single. So you see all the labels have become visible. Another interesting property is the text alignment. The default text alignment is top left. As you can see, the text is top left. We can choose another option like left middle or bottom left, or we can choose this middle option. As you can see, the text is placed in the middle of the label. And the label control also has visible property. Using this property, you can simply hide your label and show it when the time is right. For example, when you want to show error or something. Let's see an example on that. Drag another label, a label control on the form like this. I'm going to change the name of the label. The name is LDL error, and the text, the label is error in program. You can change the background color to make it look like an error. Here's the background color. Choose red like this. And now the visible property. The visible, I'm going to set it to false. You won't see this label when the program is executed. And when the button is clicked, we are going to display this error message. So in our code, this is our button event. And right here, I will call the label error. Now call the visible property and make it true. That's it. So let's run the program and check the output. So you see the label is not visible. Let's click on the button and here comes the error in our program, right? So that was the label control we covered in this chapter. Now in the next chapter, we are going to cover the text box control. Text box is the most essential control. Every application has one and more text boxes. The text box control is one of the most important ones in WinForms because it lets user input data, right? So using text box, we gather data in our program. Text box is for user input. In the last chapter, we covered the label control. Label control is the read-only control. You cannot write in the label. Labels are used to show information, not for data input. Now we will be able to develop more practical applications because we will read data in our program, process the data, and display the result. From the toolbox, we need to drag the text box, but first we need to find it. If I scroll down, so here we have our text box control. You can also search for it. So drag a text box on the form. This is how text box looks like. And in this text box, you can simply input data. So let's run the program and see the output. So you see our text box, the cursor is blinking, and that means we can provide here something. We can provide the text, we can provide numbers, etc. So very simple and elegant control for data input. In order to label the text box, we use label control. So let's drag a label control and place it right here. Now this text box, let's say for inserting name or providing name to the program, so we can change the text to the label such as name. Now the user know that this text box is for name. Now the text box control has several important properties which you need to know. And of course, the first property is the name property. Text box are for user input. That means they will definitely be used in the code. So we must assign a good and recognizable name to our text boxes so that the data reading become correct in the code file. As this text box is for reading the name, so the text box name should be TBX. TBX represents the text box and the functionality, which is name. The TBX name is a proper and good name to this text box. So that was the name property, and we need to be very careful about it. Another property, as you know, is the text property. The text property represents the text inside the control. If I put something here, let's say hello, you will see the text appears in the text box. So we usually don't update the text property of the text boxes. Text property is actually used in the code in order to read the user input. So just remove the text from the property window. Right under the text property, we have another interesting property, text align property, which is set to left. You can also change it to right or center, but the left is most common. Text boxes also have character limits. If I scroll up, so here we have maximum length property, which is set to 32,767 characters. So maximum length actually specifies the maximum number of characters that can be entered in the control, in the text box control. So if you want, you can control or set another limit to your text box. Another interesting property is a read-only property. So we can make a text box work like a label just by turning the read-only from false to true. Now you can see our text box has become just like a label, right? So let me turn it back to false. Multiline can also be activated on the text box. If you need a text box to gather a text, a long text, then you can activate a multiline. As you activate the multiline, switching it to true, then you have options to drag it and make it bigger like this. So multiline option is also there. Let's turn it back, make it false. And you see this small arrow sign at the top, the right top area. If you click on this small arrow, then you also have the option to activate the multi-line property, right? So you can activate the multi-line property directly using this option. Another useful property to guide the user is placeholder text. The text disappears as the user starts typing. For example, this first text box is for inserting the name. So we can put a placeholder here, enter your name here like this. You can see the placeholder. So let's run the program and see how does it react. We unfortunately don't see any placeholder because we have only one text box and cursor is automatically placed here when the application starts. That's why a placeholder disappears. For example, I put another text box here. This is the text box, and we just wanna insert the placeholder. This is the placeholder. Let's say uh, enter age, right? Now let's run the program and check the output. And here you see the placeholder text. As the cursor comes here, this will disappear, and here you see our another placeholder text in the first text box. Enter your name here, right? Now remove the text box. And now the final property here is password char property. This property is used to create a password look like text box where the characters are actually replaced by our own provided character. For example, I want to replace each and every character provided by the user in this text box with an asterisk. So I will provide a single character here, asterisk. This is not a crypting, this is just hiding. Right? So let's run the program and check the output. Now provide any text here, and you can see the characters are actually hidden. So that was the password char property. Let's remove the character from the property and make it a normal text box. So these were the important properties related to the text box. We use them, update, and manipulate them. Now let's move on and learn the real use of the text box. Read the data in the program and process it. We are going to develop a simple application. User will provide its information. We will receive the information in the program and then display it back on the form. So here we have our name text box. We can copy and paste it multiple times like this. You can see the rapid development in WinForm. So this is the name, and here we will read the profession. So the title should be profession. It's just the size or the placement, and this is for username or simply user ID, and this one is for password. Password, change the placement, and we need another set. Let's say the last one is for age. Select the label, change the text to age. So this is our application. We are going to read some information from the user. We can also select all the text boxes and increase the text size, font size. Let's say the font size is set to 9. You can convert it to or change it to, let's say, 13. Right? And now the naming. The naming is very important. The first text box is for name, and its name is TBX name. The second one should be TBX profession, TBX profession, and the placeholder text is confusing. So we can change the placeholder text here and profession like this. And the third text box is for user ID. The name should be TBX user ID, and the placeholder text is enter user ID. And now the password text box, the name is TBX password, and the placeholder text is enter password like this. And the last one is for age, the name property. Once again, very important. TBX age is the name. All the names are programmatic, and enter age, right? So user gonna provide some information, and we will read the information when the button is clicked. So we need a button. Let's drag a button on the form like this, and the text is submit information, and the name of the button is BTN submit. And finally, we need a label control to show the submitted information. The name of the label is LVL submitted information. Auto sign is set to false so that we can change the size of our label. Let's say this is the size of our label, and the font size is also same as the checkbox says. Here we have 13 pixels, and the visible property is set to false. We will show the label when the information is submitted successfully. So let's just run the application and check the interface or the output. So you see a form with 5 text boxes, a button, and label here is hidden. It's now time to program the application. Everything is programmed behind the click event. So let's assign the click event to the button, double click on the button, and here we have the click event. We have 5 text boxes with different pieces of information. We will read the information and save them in different variables. So the first information is name, and for that we have text box name, and now we will, on the text box, we will call the text property. We are going to read the text property. Text property represents the text inside the text boxes. So the name provided by the user will be saved in the name variable, and we have a string profession, and for that so we have profession text box, and once again the text property string user ID. And for that, we have a text box, user ID, text property, and now we have string password. And for that, we have TBX password dot text. And finally, we have age. So string age TBX age dot text. So you see, this is how we read input data. Let me put a comment, read input from the text boxes. It's now time for processing. Before we display information back to the form, we must validate our variables. We must validate the data. We don't want the user to leave any text box empty. So in an if statement, we are going to control all the variables. If not, its string is null or empty. The first one is the name variable. It's not a string, it's null or empty. And the second one is it's null or empty. And the third one is not a string, it's null or empty. And this time we are gonna pass the user ID is not a string, it's null or empty. The password, and the last one is it's not a string, it's null or empty. Age. So we are controlling all the variables for not null or empty. If the condition becomes true, that means all the text boxes have some data. And in this case, we can build and output a string. So let's just have a string variable inside the event method, output message, which is empty. And now we can build this output message. Sorry, output message, information received. And now we will provide name, new line, profession, new line, user ID, user ID. The password is sensitive and it is not a good idea to show the password in clear text. So we can simply show the asterisk like this. And then finally, we will show the age variable, right? So this is our output string, and this output string we are gonna show here in our label. The name of the label is LBL submitted information. So let's just insert LBL submitted information of text and assign the output message to it. And now we are gonna visible this label control. That's it. So you see the input in the program from the text boxes. Here is the process, and here is the final result output. And when any of the text box is empty, we can display a message box. We can attach an else statement to the if statement, and here we can display a message box, show like this, provide full information. That's it. Let's now run the program and check the output. And here we go. Let's just start providing the information. Name, it's Sala. Teacher, user ID is Sala. Password is ABC123. Now without entering my age, I just try to submit the information. There must be a text box. Here is say provide full information. Now I will provide my age here as well. Now click on the button, submit information. You will see the summary of the information here in the label box provided. And here you see the information. So that was an interesting application, right? So that was the TextBox control that we covered in this chapter. And you can see now we are able to create much better application, practical applications. So this is the end of the chapter. In the next chapter, we will try to put everything together and develop a simple calculator. It's now time to program something interesting, a project-like application, so that you get a feeling like, yay, I can program in WinForms, I can program practical or functional applications, right? So we are going to program a simple calculator using the text boxes. The user will insert number 1, number 2, and the operator in the text boxes, and the program will calculate the result. So let's start the development. This is our form. The title of the form is bank application. If you remember, we set this title long time ago. So let's remove the title and change it to simple calculator. And now I'm going to drag a label control. Let me just find the label control like this. And here we will put a text, simple calculator. And now I'm going to activate the dock property. I will dock the label to the top like this. And auto size should be false like this. And the text alignment, with the text alignment, here's the text alignment in the middle. And now we're going to change the font. Let's make it bigger. Let's say 20 pixels like this. And now we need 3 text boxes for number 1, number 2, and the operator. So let's search for the text box. Here we have a text box. Drag it, set the property of the first text box. Then we can create multiple copies. The name of the first text box is TBX number 1. The font size of the text box is, let's say, 15, and the text alignment is center. And the placeholder is, where is a placeholder property? Here's a placeholder property, and number 1. And now we can make copies. This is for number 2, and another copy is for operator. Let's select the first one, change the name, TBX number 2, and the placeholder is enter number 2. And now select the last text box, the third one, CVX operator. And here we will have a placeholder text like plus, minus, multiplication, or division, right? And now we need a button control in order to calculate the result. This is our button control. Let's put it right here. Adjust the properties. The name of the button is BTN calculate. increase the font size 13, and the text should be calculate. And finally, we need a label control to show the result. This is our label control. It's just the properties. The first property we are going to change here is the name LBL result like this. Auto size is false so that we can change the size of our label. And now the text align property should be center and the text is 0. And of course, the font size. Font size is 13. So this is our application interface. Everything is programmed behind this click event. So let's double click on the button to create the click event. So here we have our click event. First, we are going to read numbers. So we need double types variables. So let's create double variable number 1, assign it 0, which is default, double number 2, and another 0. Sorry, number 2 should be the right name. As you know, the text property here in the text boxes represents the string. So we need to type convert the data from the text representation of numbers to the real numbers. So double, we know we use the parse method. And here we will call the text box number 1 and we'll pass the text which is inside the text box. And the same we will do with the second text box. Number 2 of text. You know the parse method from the C#. Here we are converting a string representation of numbers into real numbers. But remember one thing here, the parse method is dangerous. It can throw an exception when the data cannot be converted. So instead of parse method, we can also use try parse, which is safer than the parse method. So I think we can enhance the application. We don't want our program to crash, right? So try parse is the better choice. If the number conversion and the assignment to our local variables goes well, the method will simply return a true value, and we can then process this variable to figure out further. Let's move on. Now, if both the variables, Boolean variables, get the true, that means user provided the correct data. But in case any of the variable gets false value, that means data provided by the user is incorrect. In that case, we will inform the user and stop the execution of the program. Just in order to inform the user, we are changing Boolean false to true. Let's say if the first number provided by the user is incorrect, then the Boolean false is assigned to the OK one, and we are changing false to true so that we come inside the if statement to display a message. And in the if statement, we will simply display a message box to the user like this. Incorrect number provided. And right after that, we will simply call the return statement. This return statement will simply stop the execution of the event method. We will not go down further. And now we are going to read the operator sign. Operator sign should be a string value. OPE is the name of the variable, and the text box is TBX operator of text. And we also need to validate the operator sign before we code further. So in an if statement, we can say if the operator sign is not null or empty, then we can process further. We can pass the operator sign in the switch statement like this and can create the cases. The first case is for the plus operator. Let's put the break. And the second case is for the minus operation, break. And the third case should be, let's say, multiplication, break. And the last one should be for the division break and the default. And the first break, there should be a colon character, not the semicolon. When the time is not recognizable, they will display an error in the default section. So we have a result label, and here we can simply insert the text unknown operator. And now inside the each case, you simply do the calculation and display the result mechanically on the form. So in the first case, here we do the addition, number 1 plus number 2. And you remember we need to call the toString method. This is our first operation, simply send. The result is directly sent to the form. Now copy this line of code. This is our subtraction. We just need to change the sign here from addition to subtraction. Now, once again, this is multiplication. Let's change the sign from addition to multiplication. And the last one is division. Let's change the sign from addition to division. And only in the division section, we can get an error or bug because dividing by 0 is not allowed. So before the division, we can check if the denominator, which is variable number 2, is not 0. If it is 0, then we will not allow the division. So in the case, we can, let's say, code an if statement. We would say if number 2 is not equal to 0, that means the division is allowed. We can put it inside, and then we will code an else statement to display a message box. In the message box, we can say division by 0 is not allowed, and right after that, we will simply empty the number 2 text box so that user can insert a new value here, and then call the return statement, which simply terminates the execution of the method right here. So my friends, our application is now completed. Let's run the application and check the output. So here we go. And without providing anything, I click on the calculate. So here come incorrect number provided. Now let's say in the first text box, I have 10. And once again, I try to calculate incorrect number provided. So I must provide numbers in both the text boxes. And in the second text box, I provide 10 as well. And now I need to choose a sign. Now let's say I choose a sign that does not exist in our program. A question mark, calculate, here comes the result, unknown operator. And I need to choose a proper operator. Let's see, plus. So here comes 20 minus 0, multiply 10, and divide. The result should be 1. And now I will try to divide by 0. So let's see how does our program react. Click calculate, and here you see division by 0 is not allowed, and now the text box is empty. So I must provide another number other than the 0. Calculate, and here you see the output. So that was an interesting application, simple calculator, and they coded the application without any problem. In our next chapter, we will move on and cover radio button control. A radio button is also an important WinForms control. It allows user to select one option from a group of options. So let's see how do we use and program radio buttons in a WinForms application. So from the toolbox window, we are going to drag some radio buttons, scroll down, and here we have radio button control. So let's drag a radio button and now make multiple copies. So we have 3 radio buttons on our form. Radio buttons in a single container are automatically linked. Linked means user cannot check more than one radio button. This form is a container. All the radio buttons are placed directly on the form, and that's why they are automatically linked. Let's now run the program and check the behavior. And so you see the output. We can only check one radio button at a time, right? And now the properties. Radio buttons have 3 key properties. The first property, obviously, is the name property. Now let's say we want to give user different payment options. So the first radio button is for Visa card. So the name of the radio button is Radio Visa. And now the text property. Scroll down and here we have the text property. Change it to Visa. So these were the two common properties, but the key property here is the checked property. This checked property is actually used in the code to find out which radio button is selected. So I will show you the use of the checked property in the code. Just wait a couple of minutes. Now the second checkbox, let's say second checkbox is for cash payment. So the name is Radio Cash, and now the text and the third radio button, which is let's say for PayPal. So now we have named and updated our radio buttons. To show the selection, we can drag a label control on the form. Let's say this is our label control. Let's just change the name of the label, LBL selection, right? And now, how do we program radio buttons? Radio buttons have their own event, which is called check change. For example, select a radio button. Now go inside the event window. Here you will find checked change event. And here you see check change is the default event for the radio buttons. Now here comes the interesting thing. When we code radio button, we attach a single event, single checked change event to all the buttons. This event is fired whenever the radio button is checked or unchecked. So it fires itself in both the cases. So we assign a single checked change event to all the radio buttons, and inside the event we use the checked property to find out which radio button is selected. So let's see how do we assign a single event to multiple controls. So we are going to select all the radio buttons like this. You can see all the three radio buttons are selected. Now this is our checked change event, and as we have several radio buttons sharing the same event, so we can name our event to something else. For example, radio button selection checked change, right? Now press enter, and here you see the event is simply created. This event is shared among all the radio buttons, or in other words, all the radio buttons gonna raise this single event. Now inside the event, we will simply use or investigate the checked property to find out which radio button is actually checked or unchecked, right? So if radio visa dot checked, we will perform something here. Else if radio cache dot checked, we perform something here accordingly. Else if radio PayPal is checked, do accordingly. So this is how we actually find which radio button is actually checked. Now we have a label to show the selection. So LVL selection dot text, and we can simply assign the checked radio button text to the label. Radio visa dot text. In the second one, LVL selection dot text radio cache text, and in the third one, LVL selection dot text radio PayPal dot text. So we are simply taking the text from the radio button and assigning it to the label control. We can also use the variables to save the selection and process it further. So let's now run the program and check the output. So this is the output. Our first radio button is checked by default. Click on the cache. You will see the cache is checked, and PayPal, the PayPal is checked, right? As you've seen, our first radio button has become the default radio button automatic. We can also change the order of the default radio button. For example, I want to make PayPal our default radio button. So in the code, here in the form constructor, right under the initialize component method, I will write radio PayPal checked true. Checked is a Boolean property. True means radio button is checked, and false means button is unchecked. Now the PayPal radio button is our default button. Let's run the program and check the output. Here you can see, right? So PayPal is our default option. So my friends, this is how we code radio buttons control. In the next chapter, we will study the checkbox control, right? The checkbox control works exactly the same as radio buttons, but they allow users to select multiple options. For example, checkboxes for hobbies or checkboxes for pizza topping. Checkbox is also very useful control. You have seen that in so many applications and on the web. From the toolbox, drag a checkbox and make multiple copies. Let's say like this. And we need a label control to show the result of the selection. Have a label control and put it right here. Now, once again, it has some important properties. The first property, as usual, is a name property. Let me just select the checkbox one, and here is a name property. Now, let's say these checkboxes are for pizza topping. So, the first checkbox, CB can be used for the checkbox, and the function is his. And now the text property, like this. Now select the second checkbox, and this checkbox is for mushrooms. Another name, and the third checkbox is for pepperoni. Name CB pepperoni, and here we have the text. Right now, our checkboxes are updated, and checkboxes are for multiple selections. So let's now run the program and check the behavior of the checkboxes. As you can see, I can select cheese, mushrooms, or pepperoni. I can only select cheese and pepperoni, right? So we can do multiple selections. And just like radio buttons, checkboxes also have the checked property, which is used in the code. Here we have the checked property. And the event is, as usual, the checked change event. So the checkboxes and the radio button both use the same event, checked change. However, checkboxes can also be programmed without the checked change event. And in fact, most of the time, we program checkboxes without the event. We get the user selections using the click event. For example, we can put a button here, place order. And when the button is clicked, read the value from the checkboxes using the checked property and then show the result. On the other hand, checked change event is the live event. If you want to show the selection at runtime, then you can also code checked change event on the checkboxes. So let me show you an example of both. Using the checked change, we will show the live selection, and using the click, we will submit the final version. So let's drag a button control on the toolbox window, put it here somewhere on the form, and drag this label here. It will show the current selection. Now, the name of the label is already set, LVL pizza selection, and the button, we should adjust the name of the button. For example, BTN order and the text property. Place order, right? So let's first program the checked change event functionality. Select all the checkboxes, go inside the event window, and here we have the check change. Name the event such as pizza selection underscore checked change. Now press enter. So this is our checked change event on all the checkboxes. So whenever the event is raised, we will check for the checked property. So if the first checkbox cheese is checked, we will do something here. Another if statement, checkbox mushroom dot checked, we will perform another operation. And another if statement, CB pepperoni is checked, so we will perform another operation. You might have noticed one thing here. We wrote this code in the previous chapter when we talked about the radio buttons. And in this code, I am using a structure if, else if, else if. And in this case, where we are using checkboxes, I am using simple if statements. There is a very valid reason for that, why I am doing so. For the radio buttons, we know that only one can be checked at a time. So multiple if statements cannot be true in this case. And that's why I'm using if, else if structure. In this structure, when a condition becomes true, program won't move further and investigate the other conditions. For example, if the first checkbox is checked, then this would be the result and program will never go down and investigate the other statements. So this if else if structure can be used here because the selection value is only 1. But in this case, multiple checkboxes can be checked, and that's why we are coding simple if statements. Now, to get the value of the selection, we can simply build a string variable, a string, let's call it toppings, which is empty from the beginning. And now when the first checkbox is checked, we will simply build this topping variable further, and we'll get the text from the cheese checkbox like this, and we'll concatenate a space with a comma. If the other one is also checked, let's say mushroom, so we will do the same here, concatenate and build a string cb mushrooms text plus comma in between, and the last one cb pepperoni, and then we will simply display this toppings variable on the form. But before that, we also check a condition. If topping is not equal to empty, right? That means user have made a selection or some selections. Or we can even simplify that if statement using the binary operator. We have a label with the selection dot text equals condition is topping is not equals empty. If it is not empty, we will simply assign toppings variable. Otherwise, we will display a message you did not select any topping, right? Let's break it down on multiple lines like this. Let's now run the program and check the development. So here we go. Let's select the cheese. Now you can see the cheese is selected. You see a runtime response from the program. Now I don't want to select the cheese. Remove the cheese. You can see you did not select any topping. Let's select mushroom, pepperoni. Here you can see my selection in runtime. Remove pepperoni and remove cheese. Here you can see cheese and mushrooms, right? And I see you did not select any topping. So to tell the user about the selection in real time, we can program like that using the checked change event. But when the time comes for the submission or for placing the order, then we must program behind this button control. So let's double click on the place order button. Here we will have the click event, and in that event, we need to access this toppings variable. This variable is the local variable. It's created inside this event method. So I cannot use this local variable outside of its scope. So in that case, where we need variables in different places in a program, we usually create them or declare them at the class level. So this is our class. We are going to create this variable here, and we must empty the variable every time this checked change event is fired, so that it build itself from the beginning using the new values. Now this variable is available in this click option. Now before placing the order, we will once again check for the empty value. If toppings is not equal to empty, that means something is chosen, then we can show a confirmation message box, such as your order summary, you have the following toppings, and now the toppings. So this is our order placing. We can also attach an else block here. In the else block, you can display a text in the selection label box. And here we have a text. You did not select any topping. Like this. And if you want, so you can make any checkbox default. For example, the cheese option or the cheese topping is the default. we can go up here in the form constructor and cbcs dot checked is true from the beginning. User can simply remove it or review it before the submission. So let's now run the program and check the output. So here we go. As you can see, the cheese is the default. It is selected. Now mushroom, you can say mushroom and cheese. You did not select any option. And if I want to place order without any selection, nothing will happen. The same message here. Now select cheese and mushroom, place order. Here comes your order. Your order summary, you have the following toppings, cheese and mushrooms. Let's now select pepperoni as well, place order, and you have the following toppings, cheese, mushroom, and pepperoni. So my dear learners, in this chapter, we learn to code checkboxes. In the next chapter, we will talk about and learn combo box control. ComboBox is another very useful and interesting control. Using a ComboBox, we can give users select different options in a drop-down list, right? So ComboBox is actually a drop-down list where a user can select a single option. So let's learn to use and code ComboBox. On the toolbox window, we will drag a ComboBox. This is our ComboBox. So let's drag it on the form, put it right here. The ComboBox has several interesting properties. We need to learn them. But before that, run the program and check the output of the ComboBox in real time. And here is the output of the ComboBox. It's actually a drop-down list, but the list is empty. And you will also notice in a ComboBox, the cursor is blinking by default. Using the property window, we can remove the cursor and make this drop-down list read-only. Now the properties. The first property, as usual, the most important property is the name property. Now let's say this combo box is for vehicle types like car, motorcycle, bus, bike, etc. So we can name it combo vehicle, right? This is the name of our combo box. After the naming, we will move to another important property which is called drop down style. The drop down style, as you can see, is set to drop down. Drop down enables the right option in the list. If you want to create a read-only list, then you need to change the option to drop down list. Now the combo box is read-only. User cannot write in it. Let's run the program and check the output. So you see the cursor is gone, and now user can only select the provided options. And now the options. In order to insert options, ComboBox has items property. When we click the item property, you see three small dots button here. Let's click on this button and you will see another window in order to insert the items. And one item per line. Now let's say first item is car, second item is motorcycle, the third item is bus, and the last item is bike. So let's click on the OK button. And now run the program. You will see all the items in the list. Now click on the drop down, you can see all the items in the list, right? So using the items property, we can simply insert items or options to the list. This items property is mostly used in the code. As a programmer, we try to insert the options using the code. When we use the code to insert the items, then we have more flexibility. For example, we can have our items in an array or in a list or enums, etc. Right? So instead of using this property window and insert the items to the list, we prefer the code option. So let's remove all the items from here like this. And now we will insert the items using the code. In the code file, we can initialize the combo box using the load event, form load event, or we can also use the form constructor. As I don't have form load events, I can use this form constructor in order to initialize and insert items into the combo box. So to insert item, we will first call our combo box, which is combo vehicle. On that, we will call the items property, and on the items property, we call the add method. Add method is going to add the item to the combo box. Now the first item is the car. Let's copy this piece of code like this. And the second item, motorcycle, bus, and bike. So this is how we insert item using the code. Let's now run the program and check the output. So here's our combo box. Let's open the list and you see all the items, right? So like I said, when we use the code, we have flexibility. We can have our items in an array, list, or enum. Let's say we have all the items in a string array, which is called vehicle, like this. So now we have our items in a string array, and from that array, we can shift all the items in the combo box. And we only need to write a single line. As we are inserting multiple items, so the method which is used here is add range and the name of the array, which is vehicle. That's it. Now you can see the flexibility. You don't need to have many lines of code. In addition, if you want to add and remove items in future, you will only make changes in this array. For example, we add another vehicle type, which is tram. So you see things have become more flexible, right? So let's run the program and check the output. Now open the list and here you see all the types: car, motorcycle, bus, bike, and tram. So that was all about creating and initializing a combo box. Let's move on. Now we need to learn how to get the selected value in the code or in the program. So let's develop a simple parking house application and learn to read the selected value from the combo box. In the parking house, a person will insert the registration number of the car or of the vehicle and then select the type of the vehicle from the combo box. This is the first checkbox for inserting the registration number. Let's label the control. The first label, the text in the label is reg number. I'll create a copy. And here we have vehicle type. And now we need another label to show the parking status. Let's change the name of the label. We are going to use it in the code LVL parking status. Auto size is 4, so we can drag the label and change its size like this. And we also update the text inside the label. Parking house. And finally, we need a button control to execute the code. This is our button control. Uh, let's call it BTN park. And the text is park. Double click on the button to create the click event. Read the reg number, TBX, and the name of the text box. I think we didn't change the name of the text box because our text box for the reg number, the name is still text box 1. So let's change the name of the text box, TBX reg number. Now once again, call the text box TBX reg number of text. User can leave the text box empty, so we need to validate the reg number. So in the board variable reg number, okay, I will simply save the status of the inserted reg number of the user. If the reg number is not null or empty, this line of code will simply return a true value, and we are saving that value to use further in the program. And now the combo box. In order to read the selected value from the combo box, we use a property which is called selected item. Selected item property returns the item selected in the combo box. But if the user do not select the item, this property simply holds a null value. So we need to check for the null before we read the value from the selected item property. So in an if statement, we will simply call our combo vehicle and the selected item property, and that shouldn't be null. That means something is selected. Now we can read the value of the selected item and save it in a string variable. Combo vehicle selected items to string. So that is how we read the selected item. And don't forget to call the toString method. From the beginning, we have our data in string form, but when we insert the data to the combo box, program will automatically change its type to object. And now we are trying to get the data back, so we must typecast it from object to string. Now we have selected vehicle type in this type variable. Registration number is here and the validation of the registration number is here. We are going to extend our if statement. we will put the Boolean variable. So if both the conditions are true, that simply means there is a registration number and the vehicle type is also selected. And now we have a label box, LBL parking status. Let's call the text property and show the information of the parked vehicle, such as registration number first. And now let's say type and then the type variable. That's it. Let's run the program and check the output. Now here we go. Insert a registration number ABC123. Choose a type, car, park. You can see ABC123. The type is car, which is park. Change the type to motorcycle. You can see and all the options are working perfectly fine. One more thing that we can do here, we can make any option default. And to do so, we use selected index property. All the items in the combo box get index values, the same as the array. For example, in this array, the car is at index 0, motorcycle is at index 1, and the bus is at index 2. Combo control will also assign index value the same way. Index goes always from 0. In the box, car is at index 0, motorcycle is at index 1, bus is at index 2, and so on. So if you want to make any option default, so you will call the selected index property and will assign 0 to it. 0 means the first component or the element at the first index. And in our case, car is at index 0, so car is a default vehicle type. So let's run the program and check the output. And so you see the car is selected by default, but the user has option to select a different type, right? So my friends, that was combo box control. From the next chapter, we will start learning the containers in order to organize the controls of the form. And the first container we are going to study is a GroupBox container. In WinForms, we have several different containers and we use them to group the controls on the form and to control the program flow. In this chapter, we are going to learn GroupBox container. In addition to the GroupBox container, there are many other containers. There is a category of containers. If I scroll down, so here you will see all the containers. We have GroupBox, panel, split container, TabControl, layout panel, etc. We will not cover all of them. We will cover commonly used like GroupBox, panel, and TabControl. So let's learn the use of the GroupBox container, drag the container on the form, and this is how it looks like. You see the light boundary. This is a container boundary, and this is the title. The name of the container is GroupBox. We can change the name of the container, for example, GroupBox Park, and inside that container, we can place the park operation like this. So the park operation has its own area, own container, and the GroupBox has a title option. So we can change also the title to make our application more understandable. Let's say park your vehicle. All the controls inside the container becomes the part of the container, and as we move the container, they will follow the movement, right? As you can see here. Now, the GroupBox has a very important property which is called uh, enabled. This property is actually used to control the program flow. When the enabled is set to true, all the controls inside the container will work, and when we turn it to false, this entire GroupBox, including all the controls, will be deactivated. So let's have a try. Turn it to false, and now run the program. So you see the entire application, this entire part is deactivated. We cannot use it. So enabled property is an important property and it can be used to activate and deactivate different parts of the application conditionally. For example, in our application, one must pay the parking charges before the parking. Let's say we have a button to pay. We are not going to program the full application. I just want to show you the use of the enable property. This is our pay button. Let's change the name of the button. DTN pay and the text. Paid parking $10. From the beginning, park your vehicle service is disabled. As the user clicks and pay the parking charges, we will simply activate the parking option for the user. But we will do everything from the code. So let's just activate the GroupBox again. Here we have the enable property, set it to true again. And now inside the code, double click on the button to generate the click event. So here we have our click event. This is the code we wrote in the previous chapter, and this is our form constructor. Now inside the form constructor, we will simply call our GroupBox and then the enable property, and we'll turn it to false. Simply deactivate the park option from the beginning. And when the user have paid the charges, we will simply activate the park option by setting the enabled to true. That's it. So let's now run the program and check the output. So you see here, we cannot park the vehicle. We must pay the charges first. So pay the charges, and now we can park our vehicle. This is how we code and control the group box control, and you can have several group boxes on a single form. So the group box is very simple and elegant control. And now the next container we are going to study in the next chapter is panel container. The panel container works exactly the same as the group box container, but panel does not have the title. As you can see, the GroupBox container has a title option, but panel does not have it. Let's drag the panel container from the toolbox window. Here we have the panel container, drag it, and this is how it looks like. You can see, it does not have any title. It only has the boundaries, as you can see here. Let's replace this GroupBox with the panel. I'm just going to shift all the controls inside the panel container. Now remove the group box and place a panel to the left side. And here we have the properties. The default name of the panel is panels. We can change the name. Let's say panel park. And once again, the most important property is the enabled property. We can use this property in order to control the program flow, just like we did in the previous chapter with the group box. So in our code, here we have the group box. Group box is removed now. Now we just need to change the name panel park. So a container is disabled from the beginning. And when the charges are paid, we are going to enable the container panel park. Let's run the program and check the output. So you see the panel is disabled, and so all the controls inside the panel. Let's pay the charges. Now you can see the panel is enabled and you can park your vehicle. The most important property is the enable property. You can also explore some other properties to make the panel prominent. For example, a background color. You can also change the border style. So that was a panel container, simple and elegant. Now in the next chapter, we are going to study the last container, which is called tab control. Using this container, you can create multiple tab pages on a single form. TabControl is another useful container to group controls on the form to create multiple pages and to control program flow. Let's see how do we use and code with TabControl container. So let's drag the control on the form, and it comes with 2 pages. And you can see here we have by default 2 pages. So let's first run the program and check the output of the tab control. You will see 2 different pages. Here is the output, tab page 1, tab page 2, and we can simply switch between the pages, right? And now the properties. When we drag a tab control on the form, we actually get 3 different things. We get a control, which is called tab control 1, and we get 2 pages, tab page 1 and tab page 2. If I open the list, so you can see tab control. This is the entire control, and inside that we have 2 different pages, tab page 1 and tab page 2. So to change the settings of the control, we will select tab control, and for the page 1, you will simply select page 1. As I select the page 1, you can see the page 1 is selected and the page 2, page number 2 is selected. The control has its own properties. You can see here the name property, for example, tab control parking system is the name of the entire control. And then we can select the pages to change the properties. For example, tab page 1. On this page, we have payment option, right? So tab page pay is the name of the page. and the title or the text of the page is pay. I can see the option pay here, and now select the second page. Second page is tab page uh, park, like this, and the text is park. So we can see very clear we have two pages. One is for pay and one is for park. Now on the pay page, we need to select the pay page. This is a pay page. We are going to place this pay button. And now we switch to the park option. So let's increase the size of the container like this. And this is our park option. So let's insert the entire container inside the park tab page. And here we have the label in the background. Let's drag the label to the side. So let's run the program and check the output of this application. So you see the output, the pay page is the default page. It comes first. And here we have the park page. Using the code, we can make different tab page the default one. And we can also call another page using the code. For example, as the user pay the parking charges, we can automatically call the park page, or we can divert the user to the park page only when the charges are paid. Let's see how do we do that programmatically. In our code, right inside the form constructor, as the first page, you can see the pay page is the default page. It comes first, but we can also change the default behavior. Just to show you, let's say we want to make park page the default page. On the entire control, we will call the property selected tab, and here we will assign the name of the default page. Let's say tab page park is a default page. Now, as we run the program, this tab comes first. So let's run the program and check the output. And so you see the output, right? The park page comes first because we made it default. Let's now reverse the changes. The pay page should be the default page. Okay. And now when the user pay the charges, he will simply enable the parking option and divert the user to the park page, park tab page. And to do so, we will once again on the control, we'll call the selected tab, and now we will assign tab page park to the property. So as the charges are paid, parking option is open and the user is diverted to the park page. So let's run the program and check the output or the interaction between the pages. So you see the pay page comes first. It has become default page, pay the charges. And I see you become diverted to the park page. Now insert the registration number ABC123, and the vehicle type is motorcycle, park, and you see the status in the parking house. So that was a tab control container we just studied. So you can simply use it to group your controls to create different pages or different layers on the form. So that was the last container we studied in this chapter, but here on the list, there are several containers you can explore by yourself. For example, split container, flow layout panel, and table layout panel. From the next chapter, we will start learning the controls which are used to handle and display large amount of data. And the first control in this category is the ListBox control. It's now time to work with large amount of data. In Windows Form, there are several tools which we can use to display enough information, such as ListBox, ListView, Data Grid View, etc. In this chapter, we are going to learn ListBox control. ListBox control is easy to code, manage, and handle. And using a list box, you can simply display the information like a list. Each item on a list box displays on a single line. So one line for one component or one item, just like the combo box. You remember combo box, right? In addition, list box provides user selection. User can simply make a selection just by clicking in the list box. List box also have own methods and several properties which make things easier in the code. Let's now move on and learn the list box control. On the toolbox window, we need to find the list box, and here is our list box controls. Let's drag the list box and put it on the form. This is our list box control. So here we have our ListBox control, and using this control, we will create a name list application. User will simply provide a name, click on the add button, and the name will be added in the list box. But before that, we must update some properties of the list box, and the first property, as usual, is the name property. So let's name it like LBX represents the list box control and the functionality. This list box is for name list, so LBX name is a proper name. After the name property, there is another very important property which is called uh, selection mode. In the list box, we have three selections mode: single select, multi-select, and no select. Multi-select simply means user has the opportunity to select multiple items. So we are not going to activate the multi-select. We will continue work with the single select. So selection mode with the value 1 is single select option. And now the items property. You remember the items property from the ComboBox. Items property is used to add items to the list, and this property is used in the code. You can add some item in advance directly from this property window. Otherwise, items are added using the code at the execution time or at the runtime. For example, in our application, we are going to read the item from the user. So we cannot use the items property here in the property window. So these were some important properties related to the list box. Let's now drag our TextBox control to read the name. This is our TextBox. User will provide a name in the TextBox, and we need a button control to add the name in the list. I'm going to update the properties. The name of the TextBox is TBX name, and the font, let's increase the size of the font from 9, which is the default font, to 12. And now adjust the buttons properties. BTM add name, and the text add name. And now double click on the button to create the event like this. As the button is clicked, we are going to read the name from the text box like this. And right after that, we are going to control the name variable. There should be a name inside. If string is null empty, is not null empty name, then we are good to go, and we can add the name to the list. To add the item to the list, we will first call our list. The list box name is listbox name, items properties, and add property. And to the add method. And to the add method, we will simply provide a name we want to add to the list. That's it. Every time we provide a name in the text box, click on the button, the name will be added to the list, and our list will continue to grow. So let's run the program and check the output of the development. So here is our application. Let's provide a name, Sala, add name. I will see the name in the list. This is the first item. Every item is placed on a single line. This is the first line or the first row. Let's add another name, Farah. You see the second item or the second component on the second row. Let's provide another name, Peter, and you see that name is added. Now we know how to add items to the list. Use the items property with the add method. Let's move on. The next thing is the clear method. The list box has its own method to clear all the items or to clear itself. So let's have another button to clear all the items. Name the button, let's say BTN clear, and the text clear list. Now double click to create the event, and now simply call the method on the list box. That's it. Let's run the program and check the output. Insert a name, let's say Sala, click clear, and you can see the list is clear. Insert multiple components, click clear, and you can see the list is clear. And now we will talk about the selection. The most important feature of the list box is the selection. You can select any record and that selection can be read by the program. And once we have selection result in the program, we can perform different operations like update, delete, move, etc. How do we get the selected item from the list box is the next thing we are going to cover. The selection in the code becomes possible because of the index values. Exactly like an array, all the items in a list box are assigned an index value, and that index value goes from 0, exactly like an array. So this first row is at index 0, the second item or the second row is at index 1, index 3, and so on. And so every item in the list has a unique index, and then we have a property which is called selected index. And that property simply returns the value of the selected component's index. So let's enhance the application and learn to get the selected value in the code. So let's have a button on the form. And that button is called show selection. Put it here. Change the name. btn show selection and the text. And we need a label control to show the selection. And now simply double click on the button to create the event. Whenever the button is clicked, we will get the index value of the selected item using the selected index property. You can see I'm simply calling the selected index property on the list box. If any component is selected in the list box, I will simply get its index value whenever the button is clicked. If the user do not select any component, then the result of the selected index property is -1. So -1 is a special value, and that simply means user does not select any component. So whenever we try to read the selection in the code, we will always check for the -1. If the index value is not equals -1, that means user has made a selection. And in that case, we are good to use this index value. So let's publish the index value on the form. We reserve a label control. I think we forgot to change the name. This is our label control. The name is LBL1. We can change its name. LBL show selection. And now LBL show selection of text, and here we say items index is index. So let's run the program and check the output. Now insert some data on the name. Let's say Sala and Sarah, and the third one is Peter. Now select the Sala. The output should be 0. Sala is at index 0. Show selection. As you can see, items index is 0. Select Sarah, 1, and feature. That's great, right? We are able to read the user selection in the code. Another important property is called selected items. Using selected items, we can read the whole items in the program, like Salah, Sarah, and Peter. So let's learn the use of the selected items property. So whenever the index value is not -1, we can also read the selected items or the item's name. Now we are going to extend our output like this, and we would say selected items name, and now I will call the selected items property, and don't forget to call the toString method on it. The item is returned as an object of list type, and that's why we need to type convert it. Now you will see both the index value and the name of the selected items. Let's run the program and check the output. Insert a name, another name, make a selection, click on the button, and you will see item index is 0 and the selected item is Sala. Now select the second one, index is 1 and the selected item is Peter. That's great, right? Now we know how to process user selection in the program. The ListBox also has a very interesting event which is called selected index change. Using that event on the ListBox, you can simply show the selection real time on the form. Right now, when we make a selection, we click on the button to display the current selection. But if you have event on the list box, you can display the selection as user update it or change it. So let's see how do we code the event. Select the list box, go inside the event window, and here we have the event selected index change, which is also the default event. That simply means if I double click on the list, program will automatically generate selected index change event. And we can simply copy and paste the code we wrote in the previous section or in the click section. So whenever the selection is changed on the list box, this event will raise and the output is generated. So let's run the program and check the output. Add some name, Sala, Sarah, Peter, and Donald. Now select Sala and you see the response direct, right? Select Sarah, you see the response, right? We don't actually need to click on the button in order to display the result. So that was a selected index change event, useful event. You can use it in your application. Now the last option you need to learn is the delete option in order to create fully functional application. So let's learn how do we delete a selected component from the list. Drag a delete button from the toolbox like this. Change the name. Let's call it btn delete and the text. Now double click on the button to generate the click event. In order to delete a single component from the list, we have remove at method. And this method requires only the index value of the selected component. The method belongs to the ListBox control, just like this clear method, right? Now, before we call this method on the list box, we will always make sure the user has made a selection. We will always make sure this index variable. Whenever the delete button is clicked, we will get the recent selection and save that selection in the index variable. And after that, we will validate the index variable that shouldn't be -1. When we come inside the if statement, that simply means index has another value other than the -1. Now we are good to call the remove at method, and to that method we can pass the index value. That's it. The delete operation is also clear. The selected component will be deleted from the list. So let's run the program and check the output. Now insert some name. So our name list contains 4 names. Let's select feature and click delete. Now you can see the feature is gone. Select Salar, delete. Now without any selection, if I try to delete, nothing will happen because we have control on the index variable. Select Johan, delete, and select Sarah, delete. Now our list is, or our list box is totally empty. So my friends, that was the list box control. We learned to add item to the list, get the item from the list, clear the list, and delete individual component. But we did not use any data source like array or list collection, etc. We simply took the name from the text box and inserted that name to the list box. That is not a real approach. In real application, the data provided by the user is saved somewhere, like in a database. You can use filing, or you can save your data in array or other generic collections. And then from the data source, we fetch the data and show on the form. So this is the real approach. So in this chapter, you only learn the control ListBox and its properties and methods. In the next chapter, we will continue with the ListBox and you will learn to use the data source property. Using this data source property, we can simply bind a data source to the list box. Data source can be an array or any generic collection. We will use list collection. So don't forget to watch the next chapter in order to complete this topic and have fully understanding of the list box. We will develop further this application, but there will be a data source in our code. Let's learn the use of the data source property of list control and create more practical application where the data is first saved in the collection and from that collection data is fetched and published on the form. So this is our application and we developed this application in the previous chapter. This chapter is actually the continuation of the previous one. Now in our code, we will simply create a data source. We are going to work with the list control to create a list of the string. The name of the list is name list and now initialize it like this. So this string list is our data source. We will save all the data in this list and then from that list, we will display the data back on the form. To connect this list collection to the list box, we will use data source property. Here is the data source property. In the form constructor, we will simply call our ListBox control and on that, we will call the data source property this and to the data source property we will assign our name list collection. So the data source of the list box is actually a generic collection. And now we need to modify and update the add operation. Instead of inserting the name directly to the list box control, we will first insert the name or save the name in our list source. So to the list, we are going to add the name provided by the user. And now we need to update the GUI or the list box. So as the name is added, we will show a complete list. And for that, we will first detach the data source and then assign the data source again. This is how we refresh the data source. So on the list box control, we will once again call the data source property and will assign it to null. And right after that, we will once again call the data source and assign the name list collection back to it. As we add a new name, we will simply remove the data source and then bind the data source again. So this is the refresh strategy which we are applying on the list box control. So let's run the program and check the add name functionality. So let's add a name, Sala. This is the first name. You can see here our binding works and Adam, and you see the Adam is also added. The application looks the same as in the previous chapter, but there is a significant difference. The data is first saved in the list collection, and from that list collection, we are displaying the data on the form. Let's now update the clear option. The clear option will simply clear the record or all the components. And the list box control has nothing to do with that because the data is coming from the list, from this name list, right? So instead of calling the clear method on the list, we will call the clear method simply on the name list. And after that, we will once again refresh our GUI. Now the clear option is also program. Let's run the program and check the output. Add a name, add another name. Now clear. So you can see the list box is totally clear. And not only the list box, our data source, this name list is also cleared. Let's move on. And the next option is show selection option. And this option needs to be upgraded. We will read the selected index from the list box and the index values are the same. The index system is the same, such as the first item or the first name in the list collection is inserted on the first line in the list box. The components in the list collection and the components which are then inserted in the list box have the same index values. So selected index will simply give us the index value and using that index value, we will read the component from the list collection. Let's say we display the information in a message box. You selected a name and now here you show the name list of index. There you can see I'm using the index plus which is at index. We can also publish the index value. So let's run the program and check the output. Insert some name. Now select Sala, that is the first name, and the index is 0. Let's click on the show selection button. Here is a message. You select the name Sala, which is at index 0, and Adam, show selection. The name is Adam, which is at index 1, right? And now the selected index change. Here, the data or the name of the component is coming directly from the list box. Index is fine because the index is same, but here we are fetching the name from the list box. So instead of the list box, we can, as we have the index value, we can simply call our name list and provide it the index value. So we don't need selected items property here. Let's run the program, check the output, provide a name. Now select Sala. Here say the index is 0, name is Sala. Peter, and the index is 1. Sarah, index 2, and the name is Sarah, right? And now the last operation, the delete operation. We will simply delete the element from the list and then refresh the list box. Index value is coming from the form. So on the name list collection, we will simply call the remove add method. The collection also has remove add method. And to that method, we will simply provide the index we are reading. And after that, we need to update or refresh the GUI. So copy this refresh code and put it right under the operation. As we remove the item from our data list, we are going to remove the data source and then bind the data source again. This is a GUI refresh strategy. So let's run the program and check the output. Insert a name. Now select the item, click delete. Let's see, item is gone. Feature, delete, salar, delete. That's it, right? Now, as you see, this refresh code is repeating itself. So we can simply create a method for that. Let's say void refresh GUI like this. And now we can call this method where it's necessary. Let's run the program and see if it's working or not. Add a name. Show the selection. And you can see selected name is Adam, the index is 1. And now delete, working, and clear list will simply empty the data source and the list control. That's great. So my friends, that was the ListBox control. Very interesting control to show enough data on the form. In the next chapter, it's time for put things together. We will develop a very interesting application and try to apply all the concepts we have learned so far. It's now time to put everything together and develop something interesting. The application we are going to develop will show name and the gender. The user will provide its name and select the gender. Here we are using the ComboBox control and then click on the add name button. And so the name and the gender will be added to the list. Our application will also have some names from the beginning. So as the application starts, some names are loaded into the application. And after that, the user has an option to provide its name and add the name to the list. For example, Julia, the gender is female, and click on the add name. You can say Julia is added to the list. In addition, we will have filtration options. Male text box will show all the males, female, female, and all will show all the person in the list. So this is the project we are going to program in this chapter. Let's move on. Let's start with the GUI. Drag to label the control is the first label, make a copy like this. The text of the first label is name, and the second label is gender. Now drag a text box to read the name. This is our first text box, and we only need one text box. Change the properties. The name of the text box is TBX. Name, change the font option from 9 to 12. Now drag a ComboBox. Here, the name of the ComboBox is, let's say, combo gender. Increase the font size to 12. And now we need a button to add the record. This, put the button here. The name of the button is BTN add, and finally the name. Add, check this add name, set the size like this. And now we need a list box to show the names. This is our list box. Like this. Change the name of the list box. LBX show name and the font. And finally, we need 3 radio buttons. Copy and paste and paste. So here we have radio buttons. The first one is for mail option. The name is radio male and the text is male. The second one is for female, so the text is female and the name is radio female, and the last one is for all the records and the name is radio all. Right, our GUI is ready and it's now time to code. Double click on the form to generate the form load event, and in the code you can see I have already created 2 variables, the list collection variable and the string array variable. The list collection already has some records, and this is the format we are going to use: the name, column, and the gender. And for the combo box, we have gender array. As the form loads, we will initialize our application. So let's initialize the combo box. Combo, gender, items, add range, and provide the gender array to it. When the genders male and females are added to the combo box, we are going to make one gender default. So combo gender selected index. Let's make the first one, the male one, default. So the combo box is initialized with the gender, and now we will insert the predefined data in the list box using the data source. So initialize list box with the data source LBX data source, and the data source is name of our list is name list. Like this. So initial setup is done. When the application starts, you will see the gender in the combo box. But let's run the application and check the output. Answer is the output. Here we have the names coming from the list, and the answer is the output. Here we have the names coming from the list, the combo box initialized, and the option male is default. Let's now program the add name functionality. So on the GUI, double click on the button to generate the click event. When the button is clicked, we will simply read the name from the name text box, and then we will select the value from the combo box. Let's call the variable gender input. The name of the combo box is combo gender selected items to string, right? Now both the inputs are in the program. We don't need to validate the gender input because we've already made one gender default. And in the properties of the combo, we can make our combo read-only. So drop-down style should be drop-down list. So one gender is default and automatically selected. So there must be something in this variable. But this name variable we need to control. So in an if statement, we would simply say is null or empty. If the name variable is not null or empty, we are going to insert the data in our name list. And when we insert, we need to think about this format. The name first, like this, and the colon, and the gender input. So as you add the name to the name list, we must update our GUI. And for that, you know what do we do? You can create a method here, update GUI, like this. Remove the data source from the form or the ListBox and then attach it again. That's it. And now call the method right under the add operation. That's it. Our add function is program. Let's run the program and check the output. So here we go. Put a name. Let's say Adam. The gender is male. Click add and no success. It means there is something wrong with our code. Why we are not coming inside this if statement? Yes, here is the error or the bug. That should be not null or empty, right? We forgot the not sign. So let's run the program. It should work now. Provide a name, Adam, gender is male, it's working. Let's provide another name, Lisa, gender is female, and it's working. Right? So we can add names to the list. It's now time for the filtration option. So let's code the redo button and finalize the application. Back to the designer. Select all the redo buttons. Go inside the event list and the event we need is checked change. Name the event like radio gender underscore checked change. Press enter. Now this option gonna be interesting. We have 3 radio buttons and one can be checked at a time. So we need 3 if statement and here we can code if else if radio male female dot checked and the last one is radio all dot checked. Now when the radio male is checked, we will simply loop through our list and when we loop through, we will pick a component from the list, for example, the first component, and we'll apply the split method using the colon character and then investigate the second part, which is the gender part. So let's see how do we do that. In the event method, we are going to create a temporary list, restore the genders. Let's call it temp name new. It's a string like this. And now the mail option. Here we are going to loop through our main list, right? But before looping through the list, we can simply check a condition to find out if the list has any name or not, right? So if the list count is greater than 0, that means there is something in the list. There are names in the list. And now we will simply loop through the list. And we'll break the components. Let's have a string array because the result of the split method is a string array as the several substrings are written by the split method. We can call the array split name like this. And to the name list of E, we can call split and our split character is colon, right? So we are looping through and splitting the components into parts, name and gender. So this array, this string array has 2 parts or 2 components. The first component, which is at index 0, is the name component. And the second component, which is at index 1, is the male component. And now we will investigate only the component which is at index 1. If that component equals male, that means we have found a person which is male. And then we will simply save that person in this temporary list. So temp name dot add name list E. That's it. When the loop has gone through our name list, we will have all the male components in this temporary list. And now outside of this operation, we will update our GUI. So on the list, we will call data source. We will detach the data source like this. And now we will apply this temporary name list, temp name like this. And the same operation we will program for the female radio button, only the condition should be female. And for the all radio button, we will simply call the update GUI method. Update GUI will simply detach the data source and then attach our main list, and our main list contains all the record, right? Male and female. So the radio buttons are now programmed and I hope they will work. Let's run the program and check the output. Add some more record. Let's say Adam. Adam is male and Lisa. Lisa is female. Let's have Julia, which is female. Now select the male option. Now you can see we have filtered out all the females and here we have the list of the males. Now select the female. Here you see all the females. Click the all. Here you see all the names or the complete list. So my friends, in this chapter, we developed an interest application and try to code a practical application using the list collection, the list box, and other controls. In our next lecture, we will study another control to display large amount of data, and that control is ListView. ListView is another control to work with the large amount of data. This control can also have columns. That means you can arrange your data in different columns. It is more advanced than the ListBox control. So let's see how do we program and work with the ListView control. Drag the control on the form. It looks exactly like the ListBox control, where we can create different columns in it. This control has three important properties we need to learn. The first property is the name property. Let's say this control is for student information. So the name of the control is LV student information. Another important property is full row select, which is set to false by default. We need to set it to true so that the user can select a full row. And if I scroll down, so we will have another property which is called multi-select. Multi-select is set to true. That means user can select multiple rows. We are changing it to false. In our application, user will only have the option to select a single row. So these were the three important properties: multi-select, full row select, and the name property. Let's now talk about the column. The easiest way to create columns in the list view is just click on this small arrow sign to the top right corner and then select the option Edit Columns. Now, in this window, you can create columns and adjust their properties. Now, let's say click on the Add button to add first column. This is the first column, and here we have the properties. The name of the column is, let's say, student ID, and the text that appears on the form is student ID. Now, add another column for student name, adjust the name, student name, and the title, student name. And the third column is a grade column, student grade, and the title, sorry, the text. Now we have three columns in our list view control. Click OK. And to make this column visible, you will select the view option, and from that option, you will select details. Now you see the columns appears on the form. The width of the column can also be adjusted. Now, once again, click on this arrow, select Edit Columns, select the first column, and here we have the width option. Let's say the width of the first column is 100, and here's the second column, have a width of 150, and the third column have a width of, let's say, 75. Right? Now you can see the width is also adjusted. Interesting, right? We have a control where we can arrange our data in different columns. Now, how do we insert data to the columns or to the list view control? Let's first have an example of it before we move on and read data from the text boxes. Just double click on the form and create a load event. This is our load event. Inserting data in the list view is a little bit tricky. We create a variable of list view item type. List view item represents a single row and the column inside. Remember this, a row is now divided into multiple columns, right? Let's create a list view items variable. We can call it single row like this, list view items. As we create the list view item variable, we call its constructor, which is a part of the syntax. This list view item is automatically connected to the first column of the row. For inserting in the first column, we can pass the data to the constructor function. For example, the student ID is 010. This 010 will automatically be inserted in the first column of the row. To insert in the second column, we call sub items property with the add method. Here we have a row with the first column, row, second column. The second column of the row is a name column. So let's insert the name, for example, Sala Askar. And now we will do it again for the third column. Single row sub items dot add, and let's say the grade is C. So you see the data insertion in the list view. We create a row and assign a value to the first column. This is the second column and the third column. We need to follow the same order in our code as we have all the columns on our GUI. The first column is for ID, the second one is for name, and the third one is for grade. This one is the preparation. We have prepared a single row with data. We can say get ready a row. Now it's now time to insert the row in this list view control. The list view control has a name LV, its information, items, add, and now we are going to add this single row on the list to the list. Right? As we run this program, you will see the data is distributed in 3 different columns. So let's run the program and check the output. And so you see the output, right? Data is distributed in 3 different columns, ID, name, and grade. Now we know how to insert data. Create a single row, initialize all the columns, and then add the row to the list view control. Let's move on. Now we will read data from the user and add it at runtime. From the toolbox, take a TextBox control. This is for student ID. Another control for student name, like this, and a ComboBox for the grades. Right, so this is our data input options. And now we need a button to trigger the event. Let's have a button, put it here. Now adjust the properties. This is the first text box. The name of the text box is TBX. Code, the second text box, TBX name, and this is the combo box. Let's call it combo grade. And the button, btn add. Let's increase the font size of the control. Select all the control, find the font property. Here at the font property, increase the font to 12. Right? Now double click on the button to create the click event, and we will start with the combo box. Create a string array of grades. Let's call it grades. In the form load, we can simply initialize the combo box. The name of the combo box is combo grade, items, add range, and assign grades array to it. Let's run the program. You will see the combo box is initialized with all the grades values. Open the combo box, and here you can see all the grades, right? Now in the add option, we are first going to read the information from the text boxes. Let's say code, TBX code, text, and string name, TBX name, not text. And finally, we are going to read student grade, combo grade, selected items to string. Here we are reading data from the form, and before we create a row and publish data on the form, we must control and validate our variables. So right after that, we will code if statement and control all the variables. The string is null empty. The first variable is a code variable. When the data is available in all the variables, we can simply create and insert the row. And for that, we have this code. So let's copy this code from here and paste it right here and change the constant values with the variables, right? We have our values in the variables, the code, name, grade. That's it. So add function is now program. Let's run the program and check the output. So here we go. Now provide a code 010, the name, Sala, choose a grade. Let's say D, add. Here you can see the data. Let's another person, another student, Donald, and the grade is he add. You can see data in the ListView control. Now we know how to add data to the ListBox control and in different columns. Let's move on. Next thing we need to learn is get the selected row data back in the program. Let's make this application more interactive. To show the selection, user need to double click on a single row and then we will show the selected row in a message box. So select the list view control, go inside the event window and search for the double click event. Here we have double click event. Double click here and attach the event to the ListBox control, right? So whenever the double click is performed, we will read the selection. Reading a selected row in the program is actually the reverse process of creating a single row. The property which is used here is selected items, which return an object of ListView items type. We need a variable of ListView items type, and the variable name is, let's say, selected row. From our list view with student information, selected items, and here we must call the index 0. This index value is important here because selected items property on the list view tips the program as collection. Selected item 0 means first selected row. Even though we don't have multi-select enabled on our list, but we still need to code this index 0 here because of its nature. The selected items is a collection whenever it is used on the list view control. Here we have our selected row, and from that row we can extract the data from the columns. Just student ID, string ID, selected row, text. If we return the text from the first column, it's string name, selected row, sub items of index 1, text, and sorry, the string is spelled, string, and string create, selected row, sub items of index 2 represents the third column of text. Now you can compare this read operation with this write operation. As we create a row, it is automatically connected to the first column, and the same is here. When we read the text from the row, the text from the first column is returned, which is the ID. And to read the text from the second column, we must specify its index. The first column is 0, the second column is 1, and the third column is 2. Now we have data in our program. We can simply build a message box to show the result. That's it. Let's upload the program and check the output. Now double click on the record to see a message box. Here comes the message box. We selected the following student, code, name, and grade. So the selection is also working. We know how to select the entire row and then extract the data from each and every column. Now the final operation you need to learn here on the list view is the delete operation. In the delete operation, we will simply get the selection, and without extracting or adding anything, we will simply remove the row. Let's button here to delete. So here is our delete button. Give it a different name and the text. btn delete, and here the text. Delete. Double click on it. So here we have the delete event. Now, before we apply the delete, we must make sure at least one row is selected. If at least one row is selected, then we can read the entire row or the first row from this line of code. So to make sure if at least one row is selected, we can apply a count property on the selected items that should be greater than 0. If I select the one row, the count property will return 1. If I select two rows, the count property will return 2. If at least one row is selected, the value of the count written in the program must be 1. And 1 is greater than 0. That means we will simply come inside the if statement. And now we will get the selected row. Let's copy this line of code and change the name of the variable selected row to delete. And after that, on our list box items remove, we will call the remove method, and to the remove method, we will give the row selected by the user. That's it. Delete operation is also program. Let's run the program and check the output. Now insert the data 010, Sala, choose a grade, add 020, let's say Sara, choose a grade, add. Now select the row and delete. You can see the Sara is deleted. Now without selecting any row, if I try to delete, nothing will happen. So I must select a row and then press the delete button. So application is working perfectly fine. So my viewers, that was the list view control we learned in this chapter. And now we have two different controls to work with large amount of data, the ListBox control and the list view control. In the next chapter, we will create MenuStrip control. MenuStrip control is used to create menus in the application. MenuStrip is another very simple and interesting control. And using it, you can simply create menus in the application. The menus that you see here, the file menu, edit menu, right? So you can create menus like this using the MenuStrip control. Here is the control. Let's drag the control on the form. You can see the control in the tray down there. And here you can start building your menu. The name of the control is MenuStrip1. So we can change the name, for example, MenuStrip file. This is our file menu. Let's start typing here. File is the title that you see. The file is the title. And when we open the file menu, there are many options, right? To create the options, we will type here, click on the file. Now let's say the first option here is open. The second menu option is close. The third option is save. And the last option is exit. In the file menu, we have 4 sub options. Let's run the program and check the output first. Here is the form, and you can see the file menu. Click on the file menu, you see all the options, right? Now, all the options can be assigned click event. Now, for example, click on the file and select the exit and double click on the exit option to attach the click event. So let's double click, and now you can see a click event is assigned to the exit option. And here we can simply exit our application. So we can call application exit like this. Now let's run the program and check the option, exit option. Here we go, click on the file, open the menu and select the exit. Now you can see our application simply terminates, right? So using the MenuStrip, you can create simple menu in your application. File is the main menu. Open, close, save, and exit are submenus, and the submenus can also have further menus. For example, the exit we can create here, uh, exit only form or exit application, right? Just to show you the example. And we can now assign them the click event and then program respectively. So let's run the program and check the output of the exit menu, exit submenu. I click on the file, select the exit, and here we have submenus, right? Simple and elegant control, you can use it to make your application look more professional. So that was all about the MenuStrip control. And in the next chapter, we will study MessageBox dialog box. You have seen that I have been using MessageBox quite often. It's now time to study the control properly. MessageBox is a dialog window. We will learn to code it properly, and we also see how to get the response from the MessageBox when the user select yes and no, cancel, etc. Let's now learn MessageBox. MessageBox is a very frequently used dialog window in WinForms. Let's see how do we display different types of MessageBox. Let's drag a button, and this button will simply show a MessageBox. We can call it btn show, and the name is, sorry, the text is show MessageBox. Now double click on the button to generate the click event. And now the MessageBox. MessageBox is actually a static class, and the method that we show or the call is the show method. The show method can take different number of arguments in order to generate different types of message boxes. The easiest way to show all the parameters and the order of the parameters of the show method is just put your mouse cursor over the method. Here you can see the first parameter is of type string, and it represents the text which is displayed in the message box. The second parameter is also the type string parameter, and it shows the caption. The third parameter is of type message box button, and using it we can select different buttons on our message box. The fourth parameter is for the icon, and the type is message box icon. We can also make any button default. So we need to code another parameter of type message box default button, and here we have option, right? Using these different parameters in the same order, we can generate different types of message boxes. Now, for example, the first parameter is of type string, and it holds the text which is displayed. We can display here, you have error in your code. That's it. So the first parameter is only the text which is displayed. Let's run the program and check the output. Let's click on the button. Here you see the message box with the text, you have error in your code. The second parameter defines the caption of the message box. Let's put a second parameter, comma, and now the caption. Let's say error message. Now this error message text will become the caption of the message box. Let's run the program and check the output. Click on the button, and you see the caption error message, and here comes the text, right? And now the third parameter. The third parameter is for the button, and the data type is message box button dot. As you put the dot operator, here we have all the options to choose. For example, you want only the OK button, OK cancel, cancel try continue, yes no retry, and cancel try continue, right? So there are different options you can choose. Now let's say I choose yes no and cancel. That's it. Now you will see three different buttons, yes no and cancel, on the message box. Click, and here you see the option yes no and cancel. The system language on my computer is Swedish. That's why you see this string text. Ja means yes, nej means no, and avbryt means cancel. And how do we read the response or the user choice? We will also learn that. The fourth parameter is the message box icon. You can also choose an icon. The type is message box icon. So right after the message box icon, we put the dot operator, and this window will give us different options to choose. For example, we have error message, so we can choose the error option like this. Now we see error icon in the message box window. Click on that. Now you can see the error icon, right? And now another parameter is message box defaults, which button you want to make default, first, second, or third. For example, the cancel button is the third button, so I can choose button number 3 as a default button. So let's run the program. Now you will see the cancel button is already selected. It's default. You see its blue border around it, right? These are the 4 or 5 parameters to the show method which you can use to display different types of message boxes. Code by yourself, choose different options, and try to display different message boxes. In the next chapter, we will continue with the message box and learn to get the user response in the program. Let's now complete the topic of the message box and learn to get the user response in the program. We have a message box which we created in previous lecture with different options, right? Yes, no, and cancel. How do we capture this response from the user in the program and let the program behave accordingly? Whenever the user clicks a button like yes, no, and cancel, this message box will return the response back in the program in the form of dialog result enum. As you can also see, the return type of the message box is dialog result. Dialog result is an enum, predefined enum in the program, and we can create a dialog result variable to capture the user response. If we do not do that, nothing will happen. For example, if I run the program and click any of the button, nothing will happen because I am not capturing the response. So to capture the response, we need to create a variable of type dialog result, and let's call it user selection and assignment. That's it. Now we are capturing the result, yes, no, or cancel in this variable user selection. Now on the form, I will simply drag a label control to show the result of the user selection, and the name of the label is LVL user selection. Now to process the user selection and let the program do accordingly, we must code if statement and check for the buttons. So user selection is a variable where we are saving the user response, yes, no, or cancel. If the value in the user selection variable is dialog result of yes, then they will do accordingly. Otherwise, user can select no. If the user selection is no, we will do accordingly. And lastly, user can also select cancel, right? And now we can display the result in the label box, label selection, text. Let's say you selected yes, copy and paste. You selected no, and you selected cancel. That's it. Now our program will capture the user response and do the things accordingly. Let's run the program and check the output. Now show the message box, choose the yes. Now you can see you selected yes. Display the message box again, choose no. You selected no, and once again, choose the option cancel, and you selected cancel, right? That was the message box dialog box, and now we know how to display interactive message boxes and how to capture the user response. In the next chapter, we will once again do a put thing together stuff and develop an interesting application, and we'll use the message box in the application. Let's put everything together and develop this interesting shopping list application. In this application, we will use MessageBox and read the user response in the program, and then our program will decide what to do based on the user input or user response. For example, we have a file menu. Here we have only one option, exit. When you choose to exit or close the application, a message box will come for the confirmation. Do you want to close the application? When you choose the no option, nothing will happen, whereas the yes option gonna terminate this application or close this application. In the description, you will provide the name of the item you wanna buy, for example, egg, organic. In the amount area, you will choose the amount. For example, I wanna buy 20 eggs and the unit is pieces. Let's add the item to the shopping list. I also want to buy milk, so let's add a milk. And let's say to liter, the unit should be liter and add. In my shopping list, I have two items. Both items are for save in the list collection, and from that list collection, the items are placed in this ListBox control. So that means we have a data source connected to the ListBox. In order to delete any item, user must select the item first. If user does not do that, our application will display a message here. So select the item first and now press the delete button. And here we will also display a message box, a confirmation message box. Do you really want to remove the item? When you click no, nothing will happen. But when you click yes, the item is removed from the list. So you see the smart use of the message boxes in this application. And our application looks more professional and interactive. So let's start the development. Here we have an empty form. The title of the form is shopping list. So let's put all the necessary control and design the GUI. Let's start with the MenuStrip. Here we have MenuStrip. Put on the form. We will only work with the file menu, and the only sub menu under the file is exit, right? After that, we will grab a group box to define the input area. That should be the size of the group box. We don't need to change the name of the group box. We won't be using its name in the code. The text can be item description. Now inside the group box, we need some controls. We need two labels to label our checkboxes. The first label, we have the second label, the first label as a title or the text. Description, the second one has a text. Amount. And now we need checkboxes. The first checkbox for the description, and the second checkbox is for amount. And to select the unit, we will use ComboBox, drag a ComboBox like this. And now we need two buttons, move for add and move for delete. Drag a button. Now simply copy and paste, make a copy, one for add and one for delete. And now we need a listbox control to display the items. This is our listbox control. And finally, we need a label control to show an error message. We will put the label control at the bottom. So this is our application interface. Let's start with the naming. The first checkbox, the name should be TBX item. The second checkbox is amount. For well-known TBX amount, here we have a combo box. It will have all the units. We can call it combo units. This is the first button for adding. BTM add is the name, and the text on it should be add. Let's select the second button. It will have remove text on it, and the name is BTN remove. Now select the list box. We can call it LVX shopping list. And on the list box, we will change some other properties. For example, the font. We are going to change the font to Korea Neon and the font size 10 pixels. And I think we don't need to change or update any other property on the list box. Now select this label. This label is for the error message. Name it accordingly, LVL error. We can leave the text as it is. We will update the text from the code. Auto size is polls, and now the dock property. We're gonna dock it to the bottom. Here we have our label and the text align. Here we have the text align uh, in the middle. And to make it look like an error, we can change the back color, for example, red color like this, and the fore color. The text color should be white, right? So this is our application interface. All the controls are named properly, and it's now time for the coding. We will first code the exit operations. So click on the file menu, double click on the exit to give it a click event. Let's double click it. And here we have our exit click event. Now, whenever user clicks on the exit option or the exit menu, we will display a message box and will ask for the confirmation and get a message box result in a dialog result variable. Let's say user response. Now display a message box, show method, and prepare a message box. Do you want to exit the application? Question mark. The second parameter is warning. The third parameter is button. We will choose only yes and no. The third parameter is message box icon. Let's say warning, and the default one. The last one is the default one. We can make no the default button, right? So MessageBox has only two options, yes and no, and whatever the user may choose, we are capturing the response in this variable. When the user chooses option no, we don't need to do anything, but if the option is user response is dialog result of yes, then we must combine application, and for that we can call application exit. That's it. Exit option is now programmed. Let's run the application and try it out. So here we have our applications. Click on the file, select exit. Here comes the message box. I don't wanna close the application, so I will choose no, nothing will happen. Now click on the file again, choose exit. And now I will choose yes, application will terminate. But one more thing we forgot is this label box. This should be hidden and will only come forward when there is an error. Okay, we are going to fix it later on. Okay, so let's click on the yes. You will see application is terminated, right? So here's the label box. Select the label control. Down there we have visible, so we can turn the visible to false. And now we will initialize our application with the initial data. We need to initialize a ComboBox and bind a data source to the ListBox control. And we will do that in the form load event. So let's double click on the form to create the form load event. So here is our form load event. And you might already have seen I have created a array for all the units, a string array. All these values are for the ComboBox, and this string list is our data source, right? So in the form load, we will first initialize the combo box. We have a combo units, items, add range, and we will assign the array units. And right after initializing combo box with values, we can choose one value as a default value. Let's say a value at index 5 is a default value. So which value is at index 5? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think this one is at index 5. The kg is at index 5. And now we are going to bind the data source, right? Bind the data source. So on our ListBox, we will simply call the data source property and will assign our shopping list collection to it. At the same time, we can figure out our method which update the GUI. It GUI, sorry, GUI. And that method, as you know from the previous lectures, will detach and attach the data source list. It will simply refresh the data on the GUI. LBX, data source, and then shopping list. We need to update our GUI on two different places, when we add data or when we remove data. So let's run the program and say if a combo box is initialized with all the units or not. And so this is the output, right? Combo box is initialized and kg is the default unit. If I open the list, here you can see all the units. Let's now figure out the add function. Now double click on the add button to create the event. So here we have our add button event. You will simply read the information from the text boxes, the combo box, TBX, item like this. Amount is a number, so we can use a double type variable. Amount, you need to parse it from the string representation to the real number. TBX, amount, text, and now the unit. String unit, combo units, selected items to string. That's it. Now these variables need to be validated. They must have some data. We cannot accept empty variables. So let's do the validation. First one, item. The amount variable is double type and we cannot check it using the string. So we remove the amount from here. Instead, we can use the try parse method to validate the amount variable. Let's say amount is 0. If the amount of a variable has the true value, that means amount is fine, amount is okay. Now we can put amount okay variable to extend our if statement. So when they come inside the if statement, that simply means everything is fine and we can save the data in this collection list, right? So we're going to create a row of the string row like this. First, we will have the item. We display the item, and then we'll display, let's say, a tab or three tabs. And after that, we will show the amount, space, and then we will show the unit. This information we will simply save in our shopping list row. And as we update our shopping list, we add or remove anything, we need to update the GUI. And for that, we already have a method update GUI. Our add operation is also down. Let's run the application and check that. Insert the item, let's say egg, organic, 20 eggs, and the unit is pieces. Now you can see the item is added. Let's say rice, 5 kg, the unit is kg, and the item is added, right? Perfect. And now we will click on the delete option. So let's double click on the remove or delete button to create the event. In the delete option, we will also use the MessageBox. Let's get the selected index of the row from the list box. And that index shouldn't be -1. It's not equal to -1. And here we're going to figure out the delete operation. And if user does not select the row and try to delete any item, we will display the message in the error label box. Is you must select an item to delete it. And you remember the label control is disabled or hidden. So we need to turn the visible property to true. So when we come inside the if block, that simply means user have selected a row to delete. And here we will once again show a same message box. I am going to copy this entire, not this piece of code. Even in the delete operation, we can change the variable name. Let's say delete confirmation. And if the delete confirmation equals dialog result of yes, that means we are good to delete the item. To delete the item, we have index in our program on our shopping list. We will call remove add method. Into that method, we provide index. And once again, when we add and remove anything in the in our generic list, we need to update the GUI. That's it. So our delete operation is also figured. Let's run the program and check the output. Here we go. Add some item, for example, milk, organic, 5 liter, add now rice, let's say 10 kg. And now we will try to remove it. Select a row, milk organic, remove. As you can see, a message box for the confirmation. If I choose no, nothing will happen. Let's try to remove it again. Message box with the confirmation. Now I will choose yes, and the product is gone. The item is gone. And when we try to remove or delete a product without selecting a row, our program will display a message, an error message here. Let's do that. And here you see the error message. And when we select the row again, this error message should be gone. So we will fix this bug. Otherwise, our delete operation is working perfectly fine. In order to reset the error message, we will assign selected index change event to our ListBox control. So let's assign event, double click. So whenever the index is changed on the ListBox, we will update our error label control. We will hide it and will empty the text. That's it. Now our application is fully programmed. We can run it one last time and check all the functions. Let's start with the products. For example, egg, party, in pieces, and milk, 3 liter, and rice, 5 kg. Let's try to remove without selecting any row. Here comes the message. Now select a row. The message will disappear. Now we can remove any item. Here comes the message box for the confirmation. I will select yes and the item is gone. Now select the file menu and choose exit, and our application simply terminates. Right? So my friends, that was an interesting application, and we tried to apply several concepts we learned in this course. We have almost reached to the end of this course. One last thing which I want to teach you is to work with the multiple form controls. As you can see, we have been working with only one form control, but we can have more than one or several forms in a single application. In the next lecture, which is the last lecture of the course, I will show you how to work and handle multiple form controls. This is the last chapter of the course, and I believe that you have learned a lot during this course and developed necessary skills to code desktop applications. I would be thankful if you could write a comment and tell me about your experience. And now back to the topic. The topic of this last lecture is work with multiple forms. It's very common to have more than one form in an application. For example, you can have an extra form to display settings or about us text, or you may want to show user agreement in a different window or on a different form. Data transfer between the forms is also very common. Different forms can share data and pass data to each other. But this topic, I mean data sharing between the form, we will not cover in this course. It's an advanced topic and there are several ways to do that. We can use static classes, we can use public properties and form constructor. But fortunately, I already have recorded lectures on data sharing between the forms. So if you're interested in this topic, you want to go deeper, I will recommend 3 lectures which I published long time ago on my channel. So here are the lectures you need to cover: a data transfer using the constructor method, and data transfer using the static variables. The lectures are there, and after taking this course, you can move further and take these 3 lectures. Now, coming back to the topic, when we create a WinForm application, we get a form to work with, and the default name of that form is form 1. When we work with multiple forms, then we need to give proper name to our forms so that it becomes easier for us to recognize them. So form 1 is our first form, and this form is our main form. So now in the property window, here is the name option or the name property, and we are going to change it like frm main. The name of the form 1 is frm main. Now let's say I want to add another form to show about us text. I will right click on the project, then select the add option. And here I have option to add a new form to the application. I can also choose new items to select the form. In the add new items window, here we have the form control. So let's select the form control, and this is our about us form. So we are going to name it frm about us, and now add the form to the application. Now you can see we have 2 different forms in our application. This is our main form, and this is our about us form. And here you see both the designer. The name of the second form is frm about us. We can confirm it here. Here you can see the name, and the text we can change. Let's say the title is about us. And now we will put a label control like this, and we'll change the text and increase the font size. Let's say 20, right? So this is our about us form. Now the question is, how do we show this form, or how do we call this form from the main form? We need an event to call or show the second form. So let's first drag button control on the form like this, put it here, change the property, say btn show about us, and here is the text about us. Now double click on the button to generate a click event. And now you will learn to call the second form. You will start by creating the instance of the second form or the object of the second form. And the syntax is frm about, the name of the object, for example, for about new constructor. This is the first step. You will always create an instance of the form you want to call or show. Now here comes the second step. This step we will call show method to display the form, and here we have 2 different versions. We have show method and we have show dialog method. Both the methods will display the form, but there is a significant difference. Show method will open the form as non-modal window. That simply means user can still interact with the main form while the second form or the about us form is open. On the other hand, show dialog method shows a modal window, and that means user must close the second form or the about us form before they can interact with the main form. Let's check both the methods one by one and learn their behavior. So on the form instance variable, I will first call the show method. Now run the program and check the output. So here we have our main form. Now click on the button, and here you see the second form. This second form is open as non-modal window. That means I can interact. As you can see, I can interact with the main form as well, right? And now we will call the show dialog instead of the show, and the window would be modal. Open the form, and here you see I cannot interact with the main window. To interact with the main window, I must close this second form. Now I can interact with the main window, right? So these are the two methods we use to display another form. We can also create an interaction between the form. For example, show the second form from the first form and at the same time hide the first form and then close the second form and show the first form back. I think I have a tutorial on that as well. Here we have a tutorial on that, how to open form 2 from form 1 and hide and close form 1, right? Now, one last thing before we wind up this lecture, where it is decided which form will be displayed first. For example, when we run this application, this main form comes first. It is actually decided in the program.cs file. If we go inside this file, and here you can see when the application starts, it's actually called our main form. Now, let's say you have another form which you want to call first when the application starts, so you will only update this constructor. For example, we have a form about us, so we can make this form as a default form. Now you will see this form comes first. Let's run this program and check the output. Here you can see, right? The about us form is our default form now. Let's reverse the changes. So you can also decide which form to come first when the application starts. So my friends, that was a lecture on working with multiple forms, and it's now time to say you goodbye. I hope it has been a wonderful journey. You have learned a lot and like the content. And once again, I would appreciate if you could put a comment and tell me about your experience. I will see you in some other course. Take care of you.